21. No matter how small a mosquito is, it's still meat. Robin's quick fingers plucked every withered herb that glowed with residual magic at the tip. After thanking Professor Sprout a few times, he hugged his finds and left. Professor Sprout glanced at the pile of discarded herbs in the corner and sighed inwardly at how sharp-eyed students were these days. Robin slipped away to a deserted spot, silently intoned, "Collect and store," and tossed the withered herbs into the central axis of the magic cube. Cultivation value, +1, +2, +8, +2, +10. The description panel on the magical creature cultivation magic cube parchment showed the level meter creeping from LV2, 3,500, to LV2, 87, 5,000. A dozen discarded herbs had yielded 84 cultivation points, hardly enough to reach LV3, but still a profit. Hogwarts was surrounded by high walls, the Black Lake, and the Forbidden Forest. Supplies and trash were only exchanged every fortnight, so these 83 points represented the accumulated remains from Greenhouse 1 over half a month. Compared to the 5,000 points needed to level up, it was a drop in the ocean. But Robin wasn't about to give up trash picking. After all, a mosquito's leg is still meat. With a rough plan for future treasure hunting, he brushed the dirt off his hands and headed back to the castle for charms. Because it was the first lesson, Professor Flitwick didn't teach any specific incantations, but instead focused on theory. Yet his voice, high and melodic, never dragged the class to sleep like Professor Binns. He threaded in a wealth of extracurricular information, and for once, almost no one nodded off. If you polled first years about the most interesting course, Robin imagined 70% would pick defense against the dark arts. Quirrell, with his nervous energy, cowering manner, and anxious eyes, seemed to broadcast, "I'm weak, I'm a beginner, come pick on me." Some did, like Seamus Finnegan, who bluntly asked about the origin of Quirrell's purple turban. Quirrell claimed he'd spent the summer in Africa, used magic to free a prince from a reanimated zombie's hold, and was rewarded with the turban. The garlic smell, he said, was from a love of garlic paste on bread. When Seamus pressed for details on exorcising a reanimated zombie, Quirrell fidgeted, blushed, and stammered until he couldn't form a sentence. Watching the whole farce, Robin muttered, "Seamus, it had to be you. Aren't you worried Quirrell will get embarrassed, pull off his turban at night, summon some gray mist version of a village tyrant, and suck your blood?" Knowing the village tyrant and Quirrell were currently linked, Robin kept himself restrained in defense against the dark arts. He wasn't like Hermione, who waved her hand every other minute to answer, nor like Ron, who slept face down on his desk and showed no respect for the lesson. If asked which first-year course he liked best, Robin would have said Snape's potions. Severus Snape's life read like a drama, a miserable childhood, escaping parental fights to meet Lily by the lake, teenage indulgence in the dark arts, and duels with James Potter, the rupture over the word mudblood that ended his friendship with Lily, joining the Death Eaters, leaking half of Trelawney's prophecy to Voldemort and indirectly causing Lily's death, then turning double agent and becoming Dumbledore's most trusted ally. He taught potions, occlumency, and defense against the dark arts, rose to prominence in his field, and later, after a tragic death at Voldemort's hand, his true intentions were finally understood. Robin loved potions, not only for Snape's knowledge, but because potions could rival magic itself. A young wizard with only a handful of spells wouldn't stand a chance against a three-headed dog, a giant squid, the Whomping Willow, an acromantula, or a unicorn, but a well-brewed potion could change everything. Friday brought the first potions class. Robin was in the Great Hall's first-floor area, stuffing roasted sausages into his mouth while reviewing the boil cure chapter, when Ron poked his arm. "Show-off's coming with his 2 lackeys," Ron whispered. Robin turned and saw Draco Malfoy sweeping through the hall with his hair slicked back and self-satisfied swagger, flanked by Goyle and Crabbe. His face was immediately punchable. Despite being at Hogwarts only a week, Malfoy strutted around like he owned the place, boasting about the Malfoy estate, its magnificent horses, obedient house elves, and the family fortune. Robin had half hoped Draco would let slip the location of the Malfoy vault so he could sneak in later, but Malfoy wasn't careless enough for that. "Harry Potter," Draco sneered at Harry as he drew near, "you've disgraced pure-blood wizards. Not only did you join Gryffindor, you go about with penniless, unwanted people. Heh, are you not picky at all? Who are you calling unwanted? Robin snapped. Whoever said it is who it is, Draco replied. An orphan, unwanted, isn't he? Goyle added. Living with the Weasleys, poorer than paupers. Crabbe chimed in. Robin had never thought of himself as unwanted. Orphans at the dean's place, the staff, the volunteers, and older kids had treated him like family. But he hated the label. He'd heard it too many times in a life upended long ago. Draco's words struck a nerve. He drew his wand. His dark, deep eyes flashed with a terrifying intensity as he stepped toward Malfoy, face hard. Draco, white with fear, stammered, Yay, you don't come any closer. My father's a school governor. If I get hurt, he'll make sure you're punished. He shoved forward, commanding Goyle and Crabbe, You two, block him. Draco scrambled behind his two lackeys. When Robin kept walking toward him without flinching, Malfoy fled. Goyle and Crabbe, seeing their leader run, flung themselves after him and left the Great Hall as well. 22. Old boring man. Coward, don't think this is over, Robin muttered with a cold sneer. Robin, what did you say? I didn't hear you, Ron asked. Nothing. Come on, let's get to potions. Potions was held in a large, subterranean classroom. On the way down, Ron kept pestering Robin for tips on how to frighten Malfoy off. He tried to copy Robin's stern look, furrowed brows, narrowed eyes, an air of, I've been constipated for a year. It didn't so much read as anger or menace as a man in desperate need of a bathroom. Ron's clownish antics made Harry snort with laughter, but the moment they stepped into the potions dungeon, he quieted. Shelves lined the walls, glass jars and bottles glinting in the dim light, each containing some dead-eyed creature or other. The basement's chill only added to the oppressive atmosphere. Ron shut up and kept his head down. When the bell rang, Snape swept to the podium in his black robes, picked up the attendance roll, and began to call names. When he reached Harry Potter, he paused deliberately. Ah, Potter, he said coldly. Harry Potter, the famous one. Snape's little humph could have been aimed at Harry or at James Potter. It was hard to say. He finished the roll and then scanned the room with his dark, empty eyes until Neville looked ready to cry. Potion-making is a precise science and a rigorous art, Snape said, in a voice barely louder than a whisper, but cutting across the room like a blade. You are here to learn, not to tremble in fear. He continued, still scanning. Brewing does not consist of waving wands foolishly. Many of you believe potion-making is less than magic, that you cannot appreciate the subtle beauty of herbs simmering over a gentle flame, of aromas unfolding and combining into something new. I will teach you how to brew simple potions, moderate potions, and advanced potions. The prerequisite is that you are not empty-headed idiots. Robin thought there was a reason Snape was disliked by most of the students. The opening lecture ended with a personal insult. After that, the classroom fell silent. A sharp sound made Robin turn. Hermione was sitting perfectly upright, chest against the desk, arm flat on the table in that goody-two-shoes way she always assumed. Suddenly, Robin felt a poke in his side and sat up. Snape was staring at him with obvious dislike. Potter, stand and answer, Snape said. Me, Harry asked, surprised, but he rose. If I add a spoonful of powdered asphodel root to a small vial of wormwood infusion, what will I get? I? Harry glanced at Robin and Ron for help. Ron shrugged helplessly, but Robin quickly wrote a note, slid it across, and Harry read, The Draught of Living Death, a very powerful sleeping potion. Harry breathed a silent sigh of relief, hoping Snape would let him sit. The professor didn't. If I set you to find a bezoar for homework, where would you look? Harry's voice trailed. Another note from Robin. Goats. Go to a hunter or slaughterhouse, open a goat's stomach and remove the stomach stone, a bezoar. It neutralizes many poisons. Harry crumpled the note and shoved it into his sleeve, careful Snape wouldn't see. Final question, Snape said. What is the difference between monkshood and wolfsbane? He shot a hostile look at Robin, who was scribbling away, as if to say, no passing notes during class. Harry stammered. He wouldn't meet Snape's eye and didn't dare look at Robin either. Robin, annoyed at being treated like a note passer, had set his quill down. He slipped his hand beneath the desk, formed a V with 2 fingers, then withdrew 1 finger. Harry understood immediately and answered, They're the same. It's the same plant. Humph, Snape sneered. Robin Lestrange, stand and answer. Robin rose and met Snape's cold, vacant gaze. He had been puzzling over Snape's earlier questions, the metaphors hidden in them. Asphodel sounded like lily and symbolized regret to the grave. Wormwood meant bitter sorrow, a clumsy way to say he regretted Lily's death. The bezoar would cure poisons, but not an empty, hollow heart like Snape's. Monkshood and wolfsbane, being the same plant, hinted at Snape's divided loyalties. It was convoluted, like a mountain path with 18 hairpin turns. Who could guess all that? Robin thought, old, repressed man, if you'd just been straightforward, you might have won the lady long ago. Before he could get lost in his internal commentary, Snape snapped another question. If I add concentrated fire slug secretion to an infusion of scurvy grass, what will I obtain? Fluorescent liquid, Robin answered quickly, a luminous solution that disperses and floats when sprayed. Fire slugs, what muggles call fireflies, and scurvy grass were basic potionary knowledge. Snape looked mildly surprised, then asked another, how do you cultivate Cornish pixie dust? Robin's eyes lit up. Finally, a straightforward question he could sink his teeth into. He rattled off the process in a rapid, practiced flow. Cornish pixie dust has high medicinal value. The plant slices are dried, ground, and mixed into flour to make a medicinal bread that treats infant indigestion. Its spores strongly inhibit other fungi. Combined with honey, aloe vera juice, and powdered gastrodiia root, it can treat many fungal diseases. Cornish pixie dust forms a symbiotic relationship with agave grass, so cultivation begins with obtaining agave grass seeds. Choose loose, nutrient-rich, moist soil with humidity above 20%. Sow the agave seeds and maintain a temperature of 25 to 28 degrees Celsius. When the agave flowers, dust the pistils with the pixie dust spores. Wait a week, the spores will take. He finished in one breath. The first years were dumbfounded. It was only the first week, and already someone was trying to leap ahead of everyone else. What were the rest of them supposed to do? 23. Backstabbing for revenge. Snape's face was grim. He fired 7 or 8 more questions at Robin, all of which Robin answered fluently, often adding extra detail, much to Snape's annoyance. Snape strode down from the podium so fast his robe edges flapped wildly. He stopped at the third row and fixed Harry with a look. Potter, take it out. Don't hide it. I saw it. It's in your sleeve. A deep sense of powerlessness rose in Harry. He wanted to ask why he was always the target, but there was no one to answer him. Potter! Snape pushed the pressure again. Malfoy, who had been snickering, clapped a hand over his mouth and fell silent when Snape shot him a glare. Potter! Yes, Professor, Harry said, and produced 2 crumpled paper balls, which he placed in Snape's palm. Snape unfolded them, confirmed their contents, and said, Robin Lestrange, because you passed notes to a classmate during class and disrupted order, Gryffindor will lose 2 house points. And you, the famous Harry Potter, Snape continued. I suppose you didn't preview a single chapter before school started, Because you cheated on the in-class quiz, Gryffindor will lose 5 house points. An uproar filled the classroom. Slytherin faces split into triumphant grins. Some stuck out their tongues and mocked Harry. Gryffindor students wore complicated expressions, confusion, anger at Robin and Harry for costing the house points, and some bent their heads almost to their desks, afraid of drawing Snape's attention and losing even more points. Professor, you can't. Harry tried to protest, but the words wouldn't come. Potter, do you object? Snape asked. I don't, Harry answered weakly. And you, Lestrange? Robin didn't care about the house cup. With Dumbledore's clear favoritism toward the main group, the cup would end up with Gryffindor anyway. I have no objections, he said decisively. Good, both of you. Sit down. A predatory glint crossed Snape's pale eyes. He returned to the podium, opened his textbook, and began lecturing on the key steps for brewing the Boil Cure potion. When he finished, he instructed the first years to pair off and brew the potion with the materials at hand. He paired Harry with Ron, sent Robin to Neville, and had Seamus team with Dean Thomas. He arranged the groups deliberately. He intended to shift the plot of the clumsy cauldron-toppling incident to the usual targets of ridicule. Neville was to be the fall guy, and Snape remembered the old grudges of exclusion and mockery. Robin, thank you. Everyone thinks I'm clumsy and doesn't want to team with me, Neville said sincerely as he weighed fanged geranium on the brass scales. Robin inwardly disagreed. Neville's intelligence and practical skill were a long way from being the sort of person who could chat while working, but he kept his face neutral. When Neville placed the wrong weights, Robin used tweezers to remove them. Neville looked puzzled but didn't dare ask. When a smaller weight was put in its place, he gasped. "Oh my, how could I have been so foolish?" "Calm down," thought Robin. "You have 7 years of Hogwarts ahead of you. You'll have plenty of chances to make mistakes." To avoid crushing Neville's fragile confidence, Robin offered a bit of encouragement. "Next time, list the steps before you start brewing and follow them one by one. You won't make that mistake again, right? You've weighed the fanged geranium. You're responsible for grinding it into powder. I'll weigh the dried nettles, porcupine quills, slugs, and the rest." "Okay," Neville agreed and set to work grinding the fanged geranium. 3 minutes later, all the ingredients were ready. Robin took charge as lead brewer while Neville acted as assistant. They began. Step 1. Light the spirit lamp and set the cauldron on it. Step 2. Add water, fanged geranium powder, dried nettles, and the other ingredients in order. Step 3. Steam the horned slugs over the spirit lamp. Step 4. When the cauldron boils and bubbles vigorously, add the steamed slugs and stir clockwise with a glass rod. Step 5. Stir until the slugs melt into the potion, then extinguish the spirit lamp and remove the cauldron. Let it cool for a few tens of seconds, then add the porcupine quills. Pale green smoke curled up as the potion slowly cleared. Once the dregs settled to the cauldron's bottom, Robin poured the potion into 2 small bottles. After sealing them, he handed one to Neville. "Oh my, a potion! The first potion I've ever brewed successfully. I'm going to write to my grandmother and send this to her." Neville gushed. Clumsy, timid, prone to crying and fumbling. Those were Neville's usual impressions. But his grandmother, Augusta Longbottom, loved him and believed in his hidden talent, and Neville wanted others to see that she hadn't been wrong. "Neville Longbottom," Snape said sternly as he came over, "this is class time. You'd best not shriek like that." "Sorry, I know," Neville stammered, picking at his fingers and sniffling. Snape snorted and walked away, his robes flapping. Robin gave Neville a discreet thumbs up, then set his plan in motion. Snape had been hovering around Malfoy most of the time, offering pointers on brewing and even praising him, making it impossible for Robin to act there. Fortunately, Neville's eagerness had helped more than he knew. Robin's mind slipped into a strange focus he called the Sea of Consciousness. How tapping into Glanth Rubble, the garden goblin's sonic blast and precise throwing skills. The villain squad, he thought. Malfoy and Goyle were a team, Crabbe and Blaze were another. "Goyle," Malfoy said as soon as the slugs had melted, "you take the cauldron." Malfoy looked at the bubbling mixture. A flicker of fear showed in his dull eyes. He pushed the dangerous task onto his minion. "Okay," Goyle said. As Goyle lifted the cauldron, a sudden clap of thunder seemed to ring inside his ears, making them ache. He saw Malfoy opening his mouth but couldn't hear him. Leaning closer, the potion in the cauldron, as if struck by a bomb, splattered innumerable drops outward. Goyle's grip slipped, and before he knew it, both he and Malfoy were soaked, potion spattering across their faces, necks, hands, and robes. Crucially, the mixture had not yet had the porcupine quills added. With the quills, the boil cure would be a proper remedy. Without them, the concoction produced the opposite effect and caused painful boils. It hurts so much. Daddy, Daddy, come to school and save me!" Malfoy shrieked, clutching at his skin. "Goyle, how dare you!" Red, swollen boils rose across Malfoy's exposed skin. He screamed in pain and still found the breath to call for his father and blame Goyle. 24. Passing by the Whomping Willow. No, it's not me." Goyle writhed on the floor, screaming. He had thought the potion would only react on skin contact. He had never expected it to be corrosive. The liquid hissed and sizzled as it ate into his back. 10 seconds later, a fierce, burning pain exploded across his skin, like 100 bees stinging all at once. Goyle's face twisted. He scrambled to his feet, howling, and ran in a wild circle around the classroom. Students shrank back as his greasy back revealed red-based, white-headed blisters. No one wanted to come near the cauldron. "Idiot! Stop it!" Snape snapped. Goyle was large and heavy, and his feet were big. As he bolted, he tracked the spilled potion all over the floor. The smooth, polished tiles fizzed and pitted under his footsteps. Snape was livid. He waved his wand and swept the potion off the floor, the desks, and the overturned cauldron. What did you two do? And nothing, Goyle. It was Goyle. He just went mad and splashed it on me, Malfoy blurted. The whole potion splash had happened so fast that Malfoy had seen nothing, but his instinct was to shift blame at once. No, I didn't, Goyle started to argue, but a glare from Malfoy shut him up. He changed tack immediately. It was the cauldron. It was too hot. I couldn't hold it steady. Yes, I couldn't hold it steady. Blaze, Crabbe, you two take them to the hospital wing, Snape ordered. Yes, Professor. Blaze, Zabini, and Crabbe hurried forward. Crabbe looked pale with fright. If Blaze hadn't steadied him, he might have been crawling on the floor like Goyle. Once the four were gone, Snape's dark eyes turned to Harry and Ron. Their workstation had been beside Malfoy's. Potter, why didn't you remind Goyle that after the spirit lamp goes out, one should wait a moment before handling the cauldron? Harry stared. Snape was trying to pin this on him too. Professor, you told us brewing requires concentration. Ron and I were focused on our own work. We weren't watching anyone else. Potter, do you only listen to half of what is said in class? Snape said coldly. Concentration also requires attention to your surroundings to prevent unexpected hazards from interfering with your brewing. Harry hadn't expected Snape to use surroundings against him. Snape's mouth curled. For failing to listen carefully in class, for not following the potion procedure, and for not warning a classmate about the danger of a hot cauldron, Gryffindor will lose 5 house points. Professor, this is also, Ron began, but Harry didn't let him continue. Ron clapped a hand over Harry's mouth and dragged him back to their bench. When Snape was out of earshot, he leaned in and whispered, Don't waste it. If you argue, you'll only lose more points. Everyone knows Snape is unreasonable. Harry had to swallow the anger down. 50 minutes later, the bell finally rang. Robin noticed Harry's sour mood and stepped forward. Don't worry, points can be earned back. If you do well in other classes and make up 10 points, that'll more than cover it. Harry's face fell further. Robin, in what class would I do exceptionally well? History of magic? He slept through that. Transfiguration? With Robin and Hermione there was no chance of getting the spotlight. Herbology? Professor Sprout favored Neville. Defense against the dark arts? Quirrell. Charms and divination were no good either. The only one left was flying. The first lesson had made Harry famous. He'd become the youngest seeker Hogwarts had seen. Robin, as usual, pulled out his glass orb and rattled off images in the same rapid, casual way he had in the train compartment. Then his body twitched and he blurted, Harry, I saw you. An eagle soaring across the sky, laughing, calling out, Look, I've earned more points for Gryffindor. Ron, can Robin actually see the future? Ron shrugged. I used to think he was faking, but remember Neville's toad? It came back because Robin said so. And I guess he might really see things. That cheered Harry up. He remembered the note he'd gotten earlier and said, I'm going to the game reserve to see Hagrid this afternoon. He's a good bloke. Want to come? Yes, no classes for us this afternoon, Robin said. Ron nodded too. At 2:45, the three left the castle. As they passed the Whomping Willow, Robin kept glancing back at the massive tree. Its trunk was thick and gnarled. Its branches were long and sparse. The willow was notorious for its temper. Anything that hit it would be met with furious, thrashing blows. It had one weakness, though, a knot on the trunk that, if pressed, made it go still. The willow also had a connection to Harry. Years ago, Dumbledore had admitted Remus Lupin to Hogwarts. To protect other students during Lupin's transformations, someone had planted the Whomping Willow and dug a tunnel beneath it to the Shrieking Shack. Each full moon, Lupin would hide in the shack. Later, to make Lupin feel less isolated and to keep things safe, the Marauders learned to become animagi, James a stag, Peter a rat, Sirius a large dog. Every month, they would transform and play in the shack before returning at dawn. Robin wondered what it would look like when a wolf fought a stag, a rat, and a dog. How could a palm-sized rat not be terrified of getting bitten? He kept asking himself the same question as they walked on. Robin, what's so interesting about the willow? Ron asked, pulling him out of his thoughts. Just curious, Robin said. Come on. They crossed the lawn and headed down toward Hagrid's small hut. It was a low stone and wood building with a pair of enormous rubber boots outside the door and a giant crossbow on the wall, apparently standard kit for the half-giant's patrols in the Forbidden Forest. "I'll knock," Harry said and rapped on the door. Thump, 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 thump. A low bark answered from inside, Fang's voice not exactly welcoming. "Fang, back up! I'm opening the door." The wooden door opened a crack and half of a huge bearded face peered out. "Wait a minute." "Fang, back up! You're in the way. I can't open the door." Hagrid's voice rumbled out as he tried to push his dog aside. Fang was a Neapolitan Mastiff, glossy black coat, massive frame, and a head that seemed out of proportion to the rest of him. When he bared his teeth, he looked terrifying. Anyone who knew the original stories, though, knew he was all bark and no bite, only a little braver than a mouse. If real danger appeared, he'd run faster than a rabbit. Right now, his enormous head was squeezed through the crack of the door, eyes nearly closed, whining and low growling, his big paws scraping at the floor. He clearly didn't want to stay inside. "Fang, be good." Hagrid held onto the doorframe with one hand and gripped Fang's collar with the other, but the momentum of a Neapolitan Mastiff is not to be underestimated. No matter how noble the bloodline, it's still a dog, and dogs share certain weaknesses, gluttony among them. Robin produced a roasted chicken leg and held it up to Fang's nose. Immediately, the dog's dark nose twitched furiously, and his struggle against Hagrid's grip dwindled. With a forceful tug, Hagrid pulled him back into the hut. "Once you're inside, bolt the door," he ordered. "All right." The little wooden hut looked like an old barn. Smoked hams, wild ducks, pheasants, and rabbits hung from the rafters. A copper kettle sat on a simple stove. Against the wall stood a bed bigger than 3 school dormitory beds pushed together, covered in a patchwork quilt made of stitched scraps. "Make yourselves at home. Don't be shy," the half-giant said, releasing Fang's collar. Immediately, like a loose colt, Fang lunged for Robin, snatched the chicken leg from his hand, carried it off, and began to gnaw on it, whining contentedly. "This is Ron Weasley. This is Robin Lestrange. They're my housemates and good friends," Hagrid said by way of introduction. "Weasley? Are you one of the pranksters' brothers? Fred and George give me such trouble. Hope you're not like them, always up to mischief," Hagrid added with a chuckle. The lid on the copper kettle clattered as steam pushed it up and down. Hagrid set the kettle aside, poured water, and placed some rock cakes on a plate. He paused mid-reach for a moment, as if remembering something, and muttered, "Lestrange, a very familiar name." Robin's ears pricked at the mutter. When he'd first learned his original surname was Lestrange back in Albania, he'd been taken aback. After receiving the original memories, though, he knew this Lestrange was not the one everyone feared. In the Potter stories, the Dark Lord had a devoted follower, Bellatrix Lestrange, the fanatical witch who killed Sirius Black. Bellatrix came from the House of Black and took the Lestrange name in marriage. She and her husband joined the Death Eaters. After her husband died and Voldemort disappeared, she was captured and sent to Azkaban, and in the end, she met her violent end at Mrs. Weasley's hands. The surname also appeared in the Fantastic Beasts stories, Leta Lestrange, a beautiful witch with a tragic past. The Lestranges were one of the 28 pure-blood families. With Leta's death, much of that family's history seemed buried. Robin didn't want misunderstandings, so he answered Hagrid out loud, "It's just a coincidence. If there were anything dangerous about the name, the Ministry would have dealt with it." Hagrid looked slightly taken aback. He hadn't expected such a frank answer from a teenager. "Oh, no offense meant, I'm sorry. Here, try a rock cake." "What do you mean just a coincidental surname?" Ron asked. Harry, who'd been listening, frowned. He still didn't understand some things about the wizarding world's lore. "Harry, people who followed the Dark Lord were called Death Eaters. The Lestrange names connected in people's heads with that violent witch who killed a bunch of innocent wizards," Ron explained as he bit into a rock cake. It was so hard the crunch sounded like it might chip a tooth. "It has nothing to do with me," Robin said again. "Anyway, what's been happening this week at school? Any news?" Hagrid handed out cups of water and asked Robin what he'd learned. Harry described the morning's mishap in potions class. Hagrid listened and tried to console him. "Don't worry about Snape. He's like that. Ignore him. He seems to really dislike, no, hate me," Harry said. I've seen the hatred in his eyes more than once. I sometimes feel like he wants to get me thrown out of Hogwarts. For a moment, I even thought he wanted to kill me. Nonsense, Hagrid said, eyes shifting. You've no feud with him. Why would he hate you? He faltered, unwilling to pursue the thought further. Changing the subject, Hagrid looked at Robin. What do your parents do? Oh, my father's Tesm Lestrange, my mother's Bobona Lestrange. They're both magizoologists, creature researchers. They've published lots of papers and columns, but this summer, while researching in the Balkan Peninsula, they ran into a superstorm and went missing. Robin answered plainly, and Hagrid felt a stab of guilt. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have asked, he said. It's all right, Robin replied. Sometimes when I read a paper about some rare plant or a hidden canyon, I think of them and feel like they never left. Huh, there's a newspaper clipping under the table mat. Don't touch that, Hagrid warned, but it was too late. Robin had already pulled the clipping free from beneath the lace doily and began to read aloud. Gringotts illegal entry incident. Latest report. Investigations into the illegal entry at the Goblin Bank Gringotts on July 31st are ongoing. The public widely believes the break-in was the work of a reclusive dark wizard. Goblin supervisor Mr. Luoshite emphasized that Gringotts did not lose any assets. The vault that was broken into had reportedly been emptied by the renter several days prior. Mr. Luoshite stated, Gringotts has no comment on the contents of the vault entered by an outsider. All wizards are asked not to speculate. July 31st is my birthday, Harry said, suddenly pale. Hagrid, you took me to Gringotts in Diagon Alley that day to withdraw money. When the vault was robbed, maybe we were there too. Hagrid turned his head away, not daring to meet Harry's eyes, clearly the one who had gone into the vault and taken things first. Harry leaned forward and pressed. Hagrid, I remember that day you came back with a little dirty cloth bundle from Vault 713. Could it be? Harry, these aren't things for first years to be worrying about. After Snape's lecture, you probably don't have much appetite, do you? Here, have another rock cake. Hagrid's tone left no room for more questions, and Harry, clever enough to read it, didn't press. The four of them chatted about other things until evening. When Robin finally led Harry and Ron away from the hut, Harry said, I saw Hagrid take a small cloth package from Vault 713. I have a feeling whoever broke into Gringotts was looking for that package. Harry, even if you've guessed part of it, don't say it out loud, Robin warned. If the intruder hears and can sneakingly get into Hogwarts, what then? It could be dangerous for Hagrid. Ron piped up. Besides, Gringotts is the goblins' headquarters. For an intruder to get past hundreds of goblin eyes and all their protections to reach an underground vault, their magic must be very powerful. Ah, then thank goodness Hagrid didn't answer me outright, or it would have been awful. Harry breathed. Whether Harry asked or Hagrid answered, the intruder already knew where the cloth bundle had been. Quirinus Quirrell had been involved in setting many of the protections around the stone. He had the means to learn. The dirty cloth package contained the Philosopher's Stone. The legend said Nicholas Flamel and his wife had lived for 600 years thanks to it. The parasite attached to the back of Quirrell's head had risked danger to return to Hogwarts for the stone. Robin, too, was curious about how much magic a Philosopher's Stone might hold. Back in the castle, the long tables of the Great Hall were piled with tempting food. Hagrid's rock cakes had been dreadful. The three of them gratefully washed the taste away with something truly edible. After eating, they went up to their tower to wash and sleep. The next day, at 1:30 in the afternoon, Robin wandered the castle, idly thinking how to raise his cultivation value. With only the income from picking up trash, treasure hunting, it would take forever for his Rubik's Cube to reach level 3. It was Saturday lunchtime, and the corridors were almost empty. Even the portrait people were snoozing in their frames. The quiet castle, however, felt like the ghosts' stage. On the second-floor corridor, Peeves, the wide-eyed, loud-mouthed poltergeist, was tormenting nearly headless Nick while the fat friar hid and watched. When a ghost with silver-stained robes appeared, Peeves, Nick, and the fat friar all turned pale and slipped through the walls. Everyone feared the Slytherin ghost, the Bloody Baron. When the Bloody Baron drifted to the third-floor landing where Robin stood, his dull eyes burned bright, and with his gaunt figure, he looked like a thing from a nightmare. "Get out of the way. Don't block the path," he rasped. A ghost ordering a living person around? Robin didn't want to show weakness. He glared and walked straight through the bloody Baron's body. By the time the Baron reacted, Robin was already on the 4th floor. The Baron glared after him, then flew back toward the Slytherin Tower, furious. "Oh my, Robin Lestrange, you are remarkable," nearly headless Nick said, clutching his head. Peeves, unusually subdued, stood nearby. Everyone feared the Bloody Baron more than any of the ghosts. Robin wasn't fond of the Baron. He had been a powerful wizard once, and his story was tragic. The woman he loved didn't return his devotion and refused to go with him. Enraged, he killed her, and then, full of remorse, took his own life with the same sword. It was a heavy, shameful thing to think a great wizard could be driven to such madness. Attacking women wasn't a mark of strength. "The Grey Lady is coming," Nick said, slipping through the wall. Robin turned as a breathtakingly beautiful ghost floated by, hair to her waist and a gown that brushed the floor. She looked disdainful, almost proud. She didn't glance at him as she passed, but Robin didn't want to miss the chance to gain cultivation value. "The Grey Lady, are you the ghost of Ravenclaw Tower?" he asked. She turned and said coldly, "I am." "Do you have another name?" "Helena Ravenclaw," he ventured. Her lips twisted into a sneer. "You're not the first, fool, and you won't be the last to covet Ravenclaw's diadem. Every year they come and pester me." So she was Helena. Robin's mind flicked through the old tale. Jealous of her mother, she stole Rowena Ravenclaw's diadem, the crown that granted greater wit, and fled to Albania. The Bloody Baron, sent by Rowena, tracked her down. She refused to return the diadem, spoke cruelly, and in a fit of anger he killed her. Overcome with remorse, he killed himself. The diadem vanished, at least from the knowledge of most wizards. In reality, Helena had hidden the diadem in a hollow tree before the Baron found her. After she died, she remained at Hogwarts as a ghost in Ravenclaw Tower. Later, Tom Riddle persuaded her to tell him where she'd hidden it. He traveled to Albania, retrieved the diadem, turned it into a Horcrux, and when he came back to Hogwarts to apply for a teaching post, he hid it in the Room of Requirement, thinking only he knew where it was. It was almost laughable. Since the castle was built, countless people had used the Room of Requirement. Flitwick's decorations, Filch's stores of brooms and tools, Winky's remedies for hangovers, even classroom desks had been moved in and out. For the Dark Lord to believe only he knew the room's secrets was perhaps the most foolish thing he ever did. 27. Room of Requirement. As Robin tried to remember the general plot of the original story, his eyes kept drifting to Helena's chest. Helena was furious. Anger made her cheeks look almost translucent. She tugged at the strap of her long dress, exposing a blackened wound on her pale chest. "See? Happy now? Have you seen enough? Put away your damned curiosity." "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend you. I was just lost in thought." "No need to explain. It's happened more than once or twice. I'm used to it." Helena straightened the strap and drifted upward toward the 5th floor. Robin called after her. "Helena, do you really have no idea where the diadem is? If you want to find it, take another approach." "I don't know where the diadem is," she replied. "If I find it, will it belong to me?" Rowena was dead. Helena was a ghost, and the Horcrux, Rowena Ravenclaw's diadem, had been stashed in the Room of Requirement's junk storeroom by the Dark Lord. Helena stared at Robin blankly. She remembered a handsome Slytherin who had sweet-talked her into revealing the diadem's whereabouts. She had once thought of killing him to take it back the night he returned to Hogwarts. But she was a ghost. Who could she hurt? So for a living boy to announce that he could find it without even questioning her struck her as both arrogant and amusing. She sneered. "Fine. The premise is that you must have wisdom, and you must be able to find it." With that she left, eyes full of scorn. The Bloody Baron had been violent and quick-tempered. Helena wasn't exactly angelic either. She had stolen what wasn't hers and refused to hand it back. Even as a ghost, she wouldn't tell the living where the diadem lay. Tom Riddle had taken advantage of that same hunger for things she had no right to possess. All the same, Helena's pride had just given Robin a vital advantage. Robin glanced around, and when he was sure no one was looking, he headed upstairs. Hogwarts held a curious room. Sometimes it existed, Sometimes it didn't. When someone truly needed it, it would appear and arrange itself to match their need. This was the room of requirement. The book said it was on the 8th floor, opposite the tapestry of the trolls striking Barnabas the Barmy. To open it, you concentrated on what you needed, then walked past the wall opposite the tapestry 3 times. A door would appear. Robin stood before that stone wall. He closed his eyes, focused on needing the storeroom, and paced past the wall 3 times. When he opened his eyes, an ancient, solemn door had appeared. He inhaled, pushed it open, and stepped inside. Cough! Cough! Dust hit him so suddenly he started hacking. The storeroom was filthy and chaotic. Towering piles of junk rose like grim skyscrapers, with aisles between them barely wide enough for one person. Finding the Ravenclaw diadem among those mountains of rubbish would be like pulling a needle from an ocean. But he had to try. Experience and level-up points were on the line. He rolled up his sleeves, grabbed the hem of his robe, and plunged into the maze. A half-ruined troll statue, a heap of splintered tables and chairs, an old leather table mat eaten through with wormholes. He threaded past them all. He paused and glanced back at the stone door. Had it shifted? No, the crack in the door let through a thin beam of light. Someone was coming. He ducked behind the leather mat and flattened himself against the mound of discarded cloth. The stone door creaked open, then slammed shut with a bang. Filth, filth everywhere, croaked a hoarse, bitter voice. I'll tell Headmaster Dumbledore to bring back corporal punishment. I'll chain Fred and George by the legs and hang them from the great hall ceiling for a night, teach the whole school a lesson. The voice spat and rasped. Every few steps it kicked at the nearest heap, sending clatters through the aisles. Filch. Of course. Argus Filch, caretaker of Hogwarts, the sort of man who sounded like a sputtering machine when he was angry. The feet drew closer. Robin barely breathed, hoping Filch would take what he needed and leave. The man knocked over more tables and chairs, and the big table mat shuddered. This whole castle, I clean it myself. My contribution's bigger than those gobshites with magic wands, Filch muttered, hacking between words. One day I'll learn a proper spell, raise my wand, make them pay for laughing at me. A clack, broom and dustpan meeting a board, then, right, I need new supplies from that other room. Mrs. Norris will be cross if I keep her waiting. Filch's footsteps moved toward the door. Relief flooded Robin until the caretaker stopped and turned back, his bulging eyes fixed on the leather mat. Who's hiding in there? Filch croaked. He cleared his throat, then added, Come out. I see you. Come out and come with me to see the headmaster. There was another layer of old satin under the table mat. I see you was mostly bluff. Still, Robin's heart hammered. He dove inward into his sea of consciousness, skimming through innate skills he might use. Garden goblin tricks? Nagini's air-based attacks? Not helpful here. Glanth Rubble's hoeing and digging skill? The floor was marble. He couldn't make a hole big enough. Glanth Rubble's precise throw? Even a whisper of movement would give him away. He hadn't learned wall phasing yet. If Filch blocked the door, he could be trapped in here. And using a strange biological skill would risk drawing attention. The storeroom shouldn't have any unusual smells. Before Robin could form a plan, Filch grew impatient outside the leather mat. His tree-bark rough hand clutched a corner. Bad boy who doesn't appreciate the chance to learn magic, he snarled. I'm going to drag you to Headmaster Dumbledore, beg him to break your wand, and get you expelled from this school. Bad boy, come out. Filch ripped back a satin tablecloth that covered a square table. His big nose went red with anger. You can't hide. He shoved his upper body under the cloth, stretching and fumbling through a pile of rags until sweat stood on his forehead, but he found nothing. Maybe that breath he thought he'd heard earlier had been his imagination. His arm struck a table leg with a painful thud. He cursed, pulled himself out, rubbed his arm, and stalked away muttering. After the stone door opened and closed, Robin, still pressed behind the troll statue, let out a careful breath. He didn't move. His gut said Filch would come back. The stone door cracked open again. A beam of light slanted into the storeroom, then an oval of shadow crossed it, Filch peeking his head inside. Robin counted the seconds. 1, 2, 3, 10. When he reached 10, the light vanished and the door slammed shut with a thud. Phew, that was close. Luckily, Nagini has the serpentine movement skill. Just before Filch lifted the tablecloth, Robin had used serpentine movement. Flattening himself to the ground, he slid through the rag heap like a viper, soundless. His consciousness slipped back into the sea of consciousness, and from there he projected Nagini and Glanth Rubble into the real room. Where is this? Where is my wife, Lilisa Rubble? Where did you take her? Oh God, Lilisa, I can't live without you. Glanth, a garden goblin, scrambled up the troll's arm and babbled in a croaky panic. Robin straightened, poked the goblin who was clutching his head, and sighed. Hey, reminder, you're a virgin. Her name is Lilisa Roland. She's a hard-working garden goblin who doesn't even harm flower roots. You have no chance with her. He'd let Glanth into the magic cube for 2 reasons. The goblin was unusually tall and muscular, and he had no parents, an odd, useful combination. He hadn't expected him to be a lovesick fool. I won't listen. Lilisa will change her last name to Rubble sooner or later. Glanth declared stubbornly, convinced of his own future. Robin rapped him playfully on the forehead. Whether she takes your name isn't up to you. Go, help me dig in that trash pile for a diadem. It's a silver circlet shaped like an eagle with outstretched wings. The head and feathers are set with hundreds of clear diamonds. The breast is one big sapphire, and dangling below the sapphire are a round gem and an oval leaf-shaped gem that form the tail feathers. Hurry. When Glanth pouted and stood with arms crossed, Robin grabbed his ankle and launched him 5 meters away into a broken jar with a satisfying thump. Don't stand there. Get to work. Grumbling, Glanth clambered out and started rummaging through the treasure heap, a trace of resentment in his gait. Robin ignored him and turned to Nagini. The snake raised her head and flicked her tongue. Her injuries had healed. Her scales were smooth and glossy, vertical pupils sharp and alert. She radiated affection for her master. Robin extended a hand cautiously. Nagini nudged it and rubbed her head against his palm. The touch was cool and a little hard, like jade taken straight out of a freezer. In summer, hugging a 4-meter viper would be the perfect mobile air conditioner, if it weren't also terrifying. If Nagini were a gentle, shy human like Kim Soo-hyun, that would be a different matter altogether, Robin thought. He crouched and hugged her. The magic cube is very powerful. You will get your human form back. Just be patient, okay? Nagini, help your master find the diadem. Remember, an eagle with outstretched wings, the head and feathers inlaid with hundreds of transparent diamonds, the belly a single sapphire, and 2 small gems hanging below as tail feathers. It's probably dusty by now. It might even be sitting on the head of a wizard bust statue. Start with the busts. If you get tired, rest. Nagini rubbed Robin's cheek affectionately, then flicked her tail and slithered into the treasure pile, the treasure-hunting pile. Glanth watched and muttered about double standards, then did a theatrical 30-second strike before diving into a pile of broken iron to rummage with gusto. Seeing he was actually working, Robin relaxed his glare. The elves' miserable state often had as much to do with their laziness and rebellious streak as with anything else. If they'd strike when they couldn't win, they only made trouble for themselves. Robin pushed deeper into the jumble. He passed stacks of snapped tables and chairs with tablecloths, heaps of broken brooms and battered bats, mounds of splintered wooden boxes, ruined textbooks, torn uniforms, and shattered jars. The trash piles formed a maze that funneled him onward. Ahead, about 7 or 8 meters away, loomed a 2-story-high pile of statues. He ran toward it. Hiss! Hiss! Nagini had reached the statue pile first. Nagini, I'll search the outside. You go inside. Safety first. She replied with a soft hiss, coiling and sliding deeper into the stone faces and busts, while Robin scrambled up the outer layer with hands and feet. He recalled what the book had said. Harry had found the pockmarked male wizard bust on top of an old bubbling cabinet, and the Ravenclaw diadem had been perched on that statue's head. Cabinet, male bust, dusty diadem. Those 3 clues narrowed the search. Robin climbed and climbed. Time passed. He sat panting on top of the pile with no diadem in sight. Nagini was in the same boat, sprawled below and breathing heavily. Nagini, I'm going down. Swim further in. If a statue falls, you'll get hurt again. The green viper was clever. She slid away toward a heap of broken kitchenware. Watching her, Robin noticed something on the cabinet right next to where she had been lying. A wizard bust, sitting on top of the cabinet, wearing a wig, and perched on the wig was a circlet, the Ravenclaw diadem. It had been sitting there the whole time, found only because he wasn't expecting it. He started down the pile in a rush, adrenaline making him hurry. But halfway down the statue he was stepping on shifted. The lion statue beneath him lurched. Then the whole mountain of stone toppled with a thunderous crash. 29. Soul Tier Token. Robin scrambled up using both hands and feet, moving like a sprinting leopard, gripping the stone statues with his hands and pushing with his legs. After doing this more than 10 times, the pile of statues shifted from a sharp triangular heap to a more obtuse mound, but he was still standing on top. The pile of kitchen utensils beside him and Nagini were in a worse state. They were buried under the rubble. Robin darted to the mixed heap of statues and cabinets, pushing stone and metal aside as he called out, "Nagini, are you all right? Where are you buried? Tap a cabinet with your tail. Give me a location so I can get you out." The statues were heavy. After moving 6 or 7, his shoulders and elbows burned with pain, but he didn't care. He strained to lift another statue. When he shifted the 18th troll statue, his arms suddenly went numb and powerless. The statue slipped from his grip and fell toward his knee. His legs, exhausted and leaden, felt unable to support him. This was going to leave him crawling out of the storeroom and straight to Madame Pomfrey. He braced himself for blood and injury. The statue crashed down with a heavy bang. Stone fragments flew and grazed the back of his hand, leaving shallow scratches. "Huh, that's odd," Robin thought. "My knee doesn't hurt, but my hand does. Did something sever a nerve? No, my toes move. What's happening?" He squinted. A huge snake head loomed, tongue flicking, and he felt his breath catch. He hung his head and breathed deep. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed a troll statue with half its head smashed and the wet, translucent mucus on the wound on the back of his hand. He guessed, roughly and gratefully, that Nagini had saved him at the last second, and even licked his wound. The bite hadn't gone purple or black, so it didn't seem poisonous. "Nagini, thank you. When we get out of here, I'll get you a whole roasted lamb." Robin reached to stroke her, but Nagini turned away. He wondered why his little pet had suddenly grown distant until she picked up a dusty diadem and, as if offering a treasure, placed it on his head. Robin took it off, blew and wiped the dust away, revealing an eagle shape studded with rhinestones and sapphires. Along the base of the wings was an inscription, "Wit beyond measure is man's greatest treasure." It was the Ravenclaw diadem. "Nagini, you really are my lucky star," he said, and reached out again. This time the snake did not shrink back. She coiled her body around him 3 times, rubbed her head against his palm, then rested her heavy head on his shoulder and fell asleep. The weight was significant, but nothing compared to the satisfaction swelling in him. Animals only sleep like that beside someone they truly trust. Silently, Robin chanted the Collect All spell and placed the Ravenclaw diadem into the central axis of the Rubik's Cube. The mechanism chewed at the diadem like a shredder, crunching, vibrating, and spat out a puff of gray mist. The marble-sized mist darted wildly through the sea of consciousness, emitting shrieks and snarls as if alive. This thing was one of the torn souls the village tyrant had sealed into objects, Horcruxes. The Ravenclaw diadem didn't have independent thought like the Sorting Hat, so this gray mist had to be a fragment of a soul. It detected a second living presence inside the misty space and hissed, lunging as if to possess. Robin slapped it. The mist was knocked down, rolled several meters, then bounced uselessly in place. He seized it and, for no reason other than relish, began tormenting it, dribbling and juggling it like a basketball, switching hands, taunting it in every way he could think of. A few minutes later, the gray mist lay limp in his palm, its murderous cries gone and its form visibly more transparent. "Ha! In my sea of consciousness you thought you could kill me?" he muttered. An idea flickered through his mind. He clenched his fist and silently chanted, "Contain everything." Instantly, the gray mist in his hand vanished. He opened his palm, empty. He walked over to the giant Rubik's Cube and inspected the squares. A gray bead in the purple square at the lower left caught his eye. The square floated closer, and in its corner sat a hazy marble-like totem. Robin clicked it and read the light screen that projected from it. Name, none. Species, soul tier derivative level, SS rank. Personality, egocentric, bloodthirsty, irritable. Physical state, weak, incomplete soul. Treatment cycle, 10,000 years. Skills, Soul Devour. Can absorb 100 of an enemy's soul power once, causing the enemy's brain to blank for 1 second. Gray Flame Scorching. Consumes own soul power to release gray flames, capable of scorching an enemy's soul. Magic value, 3,000. Combat power, 200. No wonder a single slap sent it flying, only 200 combat power. The treatment cycle line puzzled him, though. 10,000 years? He couldn't make sense of that. He named the gray mist Little Gray, waved for the purple square to return to its position, then summoned the Rubik's Cube status panel. Cultivation value, plus 4,500. Level, Elv 2, 45,085,000. It truly lived up to being Rowena Ravenclaw's relic. The inherent magic was potent. With just 413 more cultivation points, he could hit the next upgrade. With effort, he could do it within 2 months. Satisfied with his work in the Sea of Consciousness, Robin hummed and returned to his body. He patted Nagini's heavy head, silently chanted, "Contain everything," and recalled her into the Rubik's Cube. Brushing dust from his clothes, he headed for the stone door. Passing the scrap metal pile, he heard clanging and remembered Grant, the garden goblin, was still fussing outside. "Grant, come here, come over here," he called. The reply was a clang 3 times louder than before. Hiss. Grant was small, but had a temper. "Grant, are you still chasing after Lalisa?" Robin added. A series of clanks answered from the scrap pile. 2 minutes later, a garden goblin emerged, skin completely black, but with astonishingly bright eyes. 30. Bulletin board inspiration. "Can you help me win Lalisa?" Grant asked eagerly, his voice croaky. Garden goblins had a 3-step courtship ritual. Step 1, dig a hole. Step 2, prepare delicious food, various plant roots and stems. Step 3, snatch the beloved. They practiced marriage by capture. In terms of brute strength, Grant could have smashed Lalisa's cave door in easily, but he was hopelessly earnest, sending flowers, plants, and love poems, still single. Lalisa clearly wasn't impressed. The collection in the Hogwarts library is one of the best in the magical world. Finding a goblin courtship secrets manual would take minutes. "Oh, master, my most esteemed master, you are so kind, benevolent, loving, clever, and compassionate. Surely you will help poor, helpless, emotionally empty Grant find a pretty wife, won't you?" His rough, gruff face was suddenly smarmy, and the tone made even the stones feel uncomfortable. "I'll think about it," Robin murmured. Before Grant could dissolve into tears, Robin silently cast "Contain all things" and recalled him into the little Rubik's Cube container. Phew, silence at last. He walked past piles of rubbish until he reached the stone door. It creaked open. Bang! The door shut. The corridor was quiet. Everything looked exactly as it had 2 hours before. The stone statues were motionless where they had been, only the candlelight in the sconces flickering. Robin straightened his robes and hurried toward the staircase, walking so fast he didn't notice something on the floor. He tripped, went down hard, and his chest ached. "Who's there? Oh, good grief, Chili." A sleepy-eyed Hermione looked up. Startled, Robin blurted out the nickname that had been in his head. "Chili, where's the chili?" Hermione rubbed her eyes and peered at the ground, dazed and adorable. When she saw Robin sprawled on the floor, she sniffed, "Is lying on the floor your new spellcasting posture?" Robin couldn't stay annoyed at the teasing. He hauled himself up and stared at her. Hermione shouldn't have been on the 8th floor right now, studying furiously. How had she ended up here? All sorts of explanations flashed through his mind, but he decided to ask straight out. "Miss Granger, what are you doing here?" "Humph, that's what I should be asking you," she snapped. 2.5 hours ago, you went into the 8th floor and completely vanished. 2.5 hours later, you reappeared, and your robes are a mess. You were following me? I wasn't. Hermione's face flushed. I didn't disappear. For 2.5 hours, I was in the boys' lavatory. Yes, the boys' lavatory. Robin stroked his chin, pretending to puzzle it out. Liar. I checked the boys' lavatory. No one was inside. No, I mean I stood at the door and called, but no one answered. He figured that when Filch had gone into the room of requirement, Hermione must have been in the boys' lavatory. He feigned a realization. Oh, that explains it. I had earplugs in earlier, so I didn't hear you calling me. Earplugs? Robin reached into his sleeve and produced 2 little green foam earplugs. See? Try them. He swept her hair back and pushed the earplugs into her ears. Can you hear me? When she looked baffled, he plucked an unlit torch from the wall and knocked it against the stone, exaggeratedly mouthing, "Can you hear me?" Hermione lip-read and shook her head. When she removed the earplugs, the thump on the wall made her ears buzz. "No, you couldn't have been in the boys' lavatory. I went in stall by stall." Robin shoved the torch back into its bracket, snatched the earplugs, leaned close and whispered, "No, for 2.5 hours I was in the third stall of the boys' lavatory. If that's not true, you'll have to admit to everyone that you're a pervert who enjoys peeping at the opposite sex in the loo." "Ha, Robin Lestrange, you—" Hermione clenched her fists, teeth flashing with anger. She lunged and actually bit at the back of his neck, leaving a row of puncture marks. Mid-bite, she seemed to remember how wrong that was and pulled away. Robin touched the teeth marks and said, baffled, "Are you a dog? You just bit me." Hermione didn't know what being called a dog meant, but she knew it wasn't a compliment. "You started it, Robin Lestrange. You disappeared. You reappeared. I won't let you tell anyone what happened in the boys' lavatory." She glared, stamped on his foot, and stormed downstairs. Robin watched her go, wincing from the pain and sighing. Her temper is seriously spicy, enough to cook hot pot. He avoided the other students and made his way back to the dormitory. Ron and Harry took one look at his wrinkled robes, messy hair, and the row of teeth marks on the back of his neck, and immediately asked if he'd fought Malfoy. Robin waved them off. The robes got rumpled because he'd dozed off, and the teeth marks were the doing of the stone guardian statues who bite students who don't study hard. "Oh my goodness!" Fred and George were right. Those stone guardians really do punish lazy students. Ron squealed. "From now on, should we go to the library less?" Harry agreed at once, and the two of them treated the library like a haunted house. Robin could only shake his head and go wash up. He'd done something big on Saturday and slept all Sunday to recover. On Monday morning, he, Harry, and Ron finished getting ready and were about to go down for breakfast with their history of magic textbooks when, stepping through the door of the boys' dormitory, they found a crowd gathered around the notice board, buzzing with excitement. "Let's squeeze in and see. Maybe there's good news," Ron said, dragging them forward. Robin, the tallest of the three, pushed to the front and read the notice over the heads of the shorter students. "Notice flying class officially begins this week. Location, the lawn in front of Hogwarts Castle. Schedule, 2 houses attend each class together. Gryffindor and Slytherin, Thursday afternoon, 2nd class. Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw, Friday afternoon, 2nd class." Harry groaned. "How unlucky. I can already see Malfoy smirking when I make a complete fool of myself the first time I try to fly." Robin grinned. "You're worrying too much. Your broomstick skills are so dazzling they'd blind a cat." 31. Malfoy deserves a beating. Robin put an arm around Harry's shoulders. "Relax. Maybe Malfoy'll be the one making a fool of himself, just like in potions last Friday. Besides, I'm 100% sure that bloke can't beat a helicopter." It had only been a week since term started, and Malfoy, flanked by his 2 lackeys, had already been boasting nonstop about how brilliant his father was, how magnificent Malfoy Manor was, and how vast his family's fortune. He'd also been telling outrageous stories about daring flights. Once an eagle had snatched his pet rabbit, he claimed, and he'd mounted his broom to chase it, toes skimming wheat fields, rivers, treetops, and mountain peaks. After a breathless pursuit, he'd rescued the rabbit, and before he could celebrate, a Muggle helicopter had come at him. He'd gripped his broom, turned sharply, and dodged it, and won everyone's praise at the manor. Everyone agreed the story's credibility was about 0. "Exactly, Harry," Ron chimed in to cheer him up. "I heard Charlie say your dad, James Potter, was one of the best Quidditch players Hogwarts ever had. You're his son. You won't be bad at Quidditch." "Thanks. I feel a lot better," Harry said. Robin was about to call the others downstairs when he caught sight of Hermione. Her lips were pressed tight. Her small face was pale and rigid, as if the word nervous were written across her forehead. "Hey, Miss Granger," he teased, "if you're afraid of heights, you can pretend to have a stomachache and skip flying on Thursday." Hermione glared. "Afraid of heights? I tend the flowers on the iron-framed balcony of my attic. Aren't you the one afraid of heights?" She pushed through the crowd and stalked off. "She's so worried about appearances," Ron complained. She was practically walking like a puppet, but she won't admit she's scared of heights, he shrugged. Ignore her. We'll see on Thursday who's really afraid. Come on, breakfast. Robin threaded his way to the common room door, with Harry and Ron close behind. Students still clustered around the notice board were talking loudly. Seamus Finnegan was bragging about his childhood exploits, and on his way to the Great Hall, he continued telling Neville and Dean about his supposed flying feats, talking on and on. On Thursday morning, everyone sat at the long tables in the Great Hall eating breakfast. Hermione had Quidditch Through the Ages open and was loudly reading out flying techniques. Lavender and Parvati covered their ears with annoyed expressions. Ron tried several times to get her to stop, but Harry held him back. Robin, sporting earplugs, heard none of it. At the Gryffindor table, only Neville seemed to be listening intently, eyes wide and eager. He hoped to learn something that would help him stay on his broom and avoid a painful spill. Suddenly, hundreds of owls swooped into the hall, circling above the 4 long tables before dropping letters at their recipients' places. Hermione finally closed her book with a reluctant sigh. "Robin, Mrs. Weasley sent you a thank you letter," Ron said, pulling a note from his overflowing bag of sweets and handing it over. Robin tore it open and read aloud, grinning. "Dear Robin, your toolkit for Arthur. He's touched it a dozen times a day. The sea green dress is beautiful. Shauna and Linda keep asking where I bought it. Ginny's been wearing the pink diamond butterfly hairpin and won't let anyone else touch it. Thank you. We all love your gifts. I made some sweets. You, Ron, and Harry can share. Molly Weasley." Robin unwrapped a green candy, apple-flavored, and to his surprise, it tasted pretty good. A large, round-faced Scottish owl flapped into Neville's lap, claws clutching a small cloth bag. Neville eagerly unwrapped it and pulled out a glass ball about the size of a marble. White smoke swirled inside. "Is that a Remembrall?" Ron asked between bites of a chicken leg. "Yeah, Gran knows I'm forgetful, so she sent it. A Remembrall tells you if you've forgotten something," Neville explained, clutching the orb. "Look, hold it tight. If it turns red, it means..." The Remembrall flashed red and glowed. "It means you've forgotten something." Neville's face went blank. He really couldn't remember what it was. His worried expression soured the appetite of everyone at the Gryffindor table. "Neville, look at your clothes," Robin blurted. Neville looked down. His shoes weren't muddy, his trousers weren't wrinkled, his gray jumper showed no wear, and his tie was neat. He looked back up, puzzled. "Oh, your robes, Neville. You forgot your robes," Hermione cried. Oh no!" Neville scrambled to his feet. In his haste, his thigh knocked the table's edge. The table shook, plates rattled, and the Remembrall toppled. Neville lunged, but someone was quicker. Malfoy caught the ball and began to juggle it, sneering. "You great oaf," Malfoy taunted. "I never thought you'd be stupid enough to need a Remembrall. You'd best pack your things and leave early. If Hogwarts sends you an expulsion letter for being too thick, your gran, your uncle, your aunt, your incapacitated parents, and the whole Longbottom family will be too ashamed to show their faces." The Longbottoms had once been heroes who resisted dark forces. Malfoy's words were like slander. Every Gryffindor at the table sprang to their feet, eyes blazing with anger. Malfoy, suddenly afraid, tossed the Remembrall back to Neville and babbled, "My father's on the school board. If anything happens to me at school, he won't let you get away with it." "Draco Malfoy," Robin snapped. "Your father can't protect you forever, can he?" "Humph," Malfoy sniffed. "The honor of House Malfoy will protect me forever." He backed away and huddled behind a trembling crab. Professor McGonagall had just entered the entrance hall when she sensed the charged atmosphere and came over, sharp-eyed. "What is going on here?" "Professor, Malfoy grabbed my Remembrall and insulted," Neville began. "Professor McGonagall, I was only joking. I gave the ball back," Malfoy stammered. Minerva McGonagall's gaze swept from the Remembrall in Neville's hand to the angry Gryffindors and then rested on Malfoy's pale face. "Draco Malfoy," she said coldly, "you should know there are some jokes that are never acceptable. Apologize to Neville Longbottom." Malfoy didn't want to lose points or be mauled with a 1,000-word reflection. He scowled, ground his teeth, and said, "Sorry." "Professor McGonagall, may I go now?" he added, eager to be dismissed. McGonagall's curt answer was enough. Malfoy led his 2 cronies back to the Slytherin table. Halfway there, he turned his head and mouthed a silent, "Just you wait," at Neville Longbottom. "Professor McGonagall, just now, Malfoy, a student began. "Miss Granger." McGonagall interrupted. "Finish your breakfast, then go straight to History of Magic." At her word, the other students fell quiet. Seeing everyone sitting down, McGonagall turned and climbed the staircase to the staff table. At 3:30 that afternoon, Robin, Harry, Ron, and the other first-year Gryffindors hurried out of the castle and across the stone steps onto the wide green of the school grounds. The sky was clear, a few white clouds drifting by, and a soft breeze made it a perfect day for flying. About 20 broomsticks lay in neat rows on the grass, Hogwarts communal brooms for first years. They had been used by generations of pupils and showed it. Some were splintered and needed sanding nearly every time someone rode them. Others had tail twigs splayed like an angry rooster's feathers that would catch on robes. A few had internal faults and began to quake halfway through a flight, trying to throw their rider off. Madam Hooch and Hagrid did their best to keep them in working order, but every year there were complaints. Robin, Harry, Fred, and George said none of these are worth riding, Ron murmured to his friends. "When you test them, don't fall off, okay?" He hadn't finished when a sharp cough behind him made him jump. Madam Hooch's yellow eyes swept the students. "Professor, I'm sorry," Ron stammered. Madam Hooch ignored the apology and walked to the front of the broom line. Her silver whistle caught the light as she turned and spoke, her voice carrying. "All communal broomsticks are inspected before being brought out. Use them as instructed and you'll have no trouble. Quickly now, choose a broom and stand beside it. Time is important. On the Quidditch pitch, even seconds can decide a match." Her tone drove them to hasten. Robin looked down at the broom in front of him with dismay. It was battered and old, the handle blotched with greasy marks, as if someone had ridden it while eating. Twigs at the tail split in every direction. "Stretch out your right hand and place it just above the handle. With determination say, 'Up!'" Madam Hooch ordered. Everyone did. Robin had to shout 5 times before the old broom creaked into his hand. He considered himself lucky. Most of the new students did worse. Harry's broom, however, obeyed instantly with a single up and leapt into his grip, Harry's natural aptitude for Quidditch showing even now. Hermione's broom rolled around like a playful pup. Neville's refused to move, as lifeless as a fish. Ron's bobbed like a stubborn rabbit. Seamus's buzzed and vibrated like a bee. It took 5 minutes and nearly everyone hoarse voices before the broom settled. Madam Hooch blew her whistle and the class turned to her. "Now, I'll show you how to mount and ride steady," she said. "First, grip the broom tight. Second, lift one leg over the tail and mount. Adjust until comfortable, then squeeze the broom with your thighs. At my command, everyone mount." Madam Hooch stalked between the rows in high-heeled leather boots, adjusting grips and posture here and there. Robin heard her scold Seamus and Draco Malfoy for sloppy mounting. It was satisfying to hear the boastful Malfoy put in his place. Back at the front, she continued, "Push off with your legs and the broom will lift you. At about 1.5 meters, lean slightly forward and then it will carry you down. We'll practice ascending and descending. Remember to hold on tight. Wait for my whistle." Before she could lift the whistle, Neville, panic making him clumsy, pushed off. He'd been terrified of being last and laughed at. He didn't want to wait. The broom took him, but it was like a runaway horse. Madam Hooch's voice cracked as she shouted, "Come back! Hold on tight! Lean forward!" The broom ignored her. Neville was carried higher and higher until the tip of the broom slammed violently into a stone wall at about 8 meters. The impact sent a jolt through the stick, and Neville's face went pale. He looked down at the grass far below as dizziness washed over him. Then, with his eyes wide and his mouth open in a silent scream, he pitched forward and fell. He struck the ground face first with a sickening thud. The broom, after battering itself against the wall several times, angled away over the vegetable patch and vanished toward the forbidden forest. Neville curled up and wailed, "My hand! My hand! Boo-hoo, Grandma!" He sobbed until Madam Hooch was at his side. After a quick examination, she said, "Your wrist is broken, and you've got some scrapes. I'll send you to Madame Pomfrey. There are no leg injuries. Come on, stand. I'll take you to the hospital wing." Neville struggled upright, tears streaking his cheeks. Children, put your brooms back where they belong. Do not touch them, and do not attempt to fly on your own. Any student who does so, who flies without an instructor, will be expelled from Hogwarts for a serious breach of school rules before they even reach the Quidditch hoops. That's enough for today. Yes, Professor, the class chorused. Neville was led toward the castle, still sniffling. Draco Malfoy could not resist a parting shot, clutching his stomach as he laughed. What a prat, can't even handle a broken broom properly. Why is he even learning magic? 33, grab the Remembrall. Shut up, Malfoy! If you're so brave, why don't you say that to Madame Hooch's face? Robin shot back, then dropped his gaze to the grass, searching for Neville's lost Remembrall. Humph. Robin Lestrange, you do love defending the weak, don't you? First the pauper, now the big oaf. Who will be next? Malfoy sneered. He turned his grin on Harry. Potter, I don't see what's so special about you to be called famous. You're just a pathetic worm who hides behind others. Ugh. Malfoy, Harry began. Before he could finish, Malfoy darted toward the lawn to the right and scooped something up. Look, it's the big oaf's little toy, he called, holding the Remembrall aloft. The white mist inside swirled, and it glittered in the sunlight. Give it back. That's Neville's, Harry said quietly. Malfoy laughed. I'll put it up in a tree and make the big oaf fetch it, so he'll fall on his face again. Every time he touches that thing, he'll remember how he wiped out. Ha! Malfoy, hand it over, Robin ordered. Malfoy hopped onto his broom, kicked off, and hovered in the treetops not far away. He raised the Remembrall and called down, taunting, Lestrange, Potter, if you two have the guts, come and get it. Robin and Harry exchanged a look, and both reached for their brooms. No, Madame Hooch said no flying, someone shouted. Hermione grabbed Robin's broom to stop him. Miss Granger. Robin protested, but Hermione had already warned him it was against the rules. Lavender, however, pushed past and sneered. Gryffindor's supposed to stand up to bullies. If you won't fight them off when they're right in front of you, what kind of Gryffindor are you? She gave Hermione a shove and pulled her back, egging Robin on. Go on, Lestrange. Show him. With a quick look around at the excited and jeering faces, Robin kicked off and shot into the air. Harry followed immediately. The rush of flying was like nothing Harry had felt before. The wind in his hair, robes snapping behind him, everything felt sharper and more vivid. Robin felt like an eagle with the sky all to himself, and Malfoy an annoying chicken squawking from the treetops. Robin climbed up, mastered a quick tail whip stop, and pulled up beside Malfoy. Below, the girls' shrieks and the boys' whoops floated up. Malfoy, give me the ball. It's Neville's. If you don't, I'll knock you off your broom like a billiard ball, he warned. Oh, really? Malfoy said, tone brittle. Robin sensed the boy's nerves and leaned forward on his broom. The broom head shot toward Malfoy's waist like a spear. Malfoy twisted and barely avoided it. Robin then slammed on the brakes and swung back, his broom head colliding with the tail of Malfoy's broom with a loud thud. Malfoy clung on like a terrified koala. His legs trembled, and it looked as if he might flip and crash into the Forbidden Forest at any moment. Grinning, Robin plucked a twig from the back of Malfoy's broom. Tell me, Lestrange. Malfoy hissed. Goyle and Crabbe can't get up here to help you. If I pull off every twig, will that broken stick still carry you? Robin mocked. Malfoy snapped. Instead of throwing the Remembrall, he drew his wand and blasted a spray of pebble-sized stones at them. If any of those hit, the damage could be ugly. Robin filled his broom's twig with magic, making it as hard as steel, narrowed his eyes, and batted every stone back with a wild sweeping stroke. Thud! One stone struck Malfoy square between the shoulders. He yelped, clutched his broom, and dropped rapidly toward the ground. Harry seized the chance, dived down beside him, and reached out, fingers closing around the Remembrall. 2 against 1, Potter. Real heroic of you, Malfoy spat. With a roar, Malfoy launched the Remembrall away. Harry hunched over his broom, dived, chest almost grazing the treetops, and after a tense moment of balance and skill, he caught the Remembrall about a foot off the ground. He straightened up and eased his broom into a gentle landing on the lawn. I got it! I got it! Lestrange, you were brilliant, Harry shouted, looking up for the expected cheers. Silence answered him. He blinked. The crowd didn't surge forward, didn't cheer. Instead, the hush was so complete it felt like someone had pressed a mute button over the whole yard. Harry's smile died as he looked up and saw Professor Minerva McGonagall standing a short distance away, eyes hard as flint. "Professor McGonagall," he stammered. It was Malfoy. Her lips compressed. "In all my years of teaching, I have never— Potter, how dare you? If you had broken your neck, who would have been responsible?" "It wasn't Harry's fault, Professor. It was Malfoy." Lavender started, but McGonagall's glare silenced her instantly. Parvati Patil pulled her back. "Enough with the excuses," McGonagall snapped. "Potter, come with me. And you too, Mr. Lestrange." Robin's grin vanished. He could already feel the trouble coming. He squeezed away from the crowd and under the worried and curious stares of everyone, including the smug looks from Slytherin, followed McGonagall into the castle with Harry at his side. They climbed the outer steps, the marble staircase inside, and wound through corridor after corridor until they were standing before a classroom on the 4th floor where a lesson was in progress. Robin knocked. "Come in." A tiny, high, slightly amused voice answered. "Professor Flitwick." "Ah, do come in." "Professor Flitwick, excuse me, could Mr. Wood step out for a moment?" McGonagall asked. Oliver Wood, Gryffindor's Quidditch captain, looked startled but flattered as he stood and slipped out with Flitwick's permission. "We'll talk later," Wood said, bewildered. "The three of you, follow me." McGonagall led them down another corridor to an old, disused classroom. Peeves was inside, chalk in hand, scribbling insults like idiot, fool, crybaby, and fat sow across the blackboard. "Out, Peeves!" McGonagall barked. Peeves flung the chalk into the bin with a clatter, muttering and cursing as he buzzed about, then zipped out of the room in a screaming fit of protest. "Wood, close the door," McGonagall ordered. The door creaked and banged shut. Professor McGonagall turned and stared at the three boys with an expression that gave nothing away. Oliver Wood looked puzzled. He still didn't know why he'd been summoned. Harry looked anxious. He feared he was about to be expelled. Robin looked confused. This whole business of Harry being chosen as Seeker didn't involve him at all. "Lestrange, Potter, this is Oliver Wood, captain of the Gryffindor Quidditch team. Wood, I've found you a beater and a Seeker." Robin thought, "Of course Potter's the Seeker. The beater has to be me." He liked watching the game, but he didn't want to get hit by a bludger. "Professor McGonagall, are you serious?" Wood burst out. McGonagall nodded. "Absolutely. Both of these children are remarkable. In all my years at Hogwarts, I've seen nothing like it. Lestrange, Potter, have either of you ever been on a broom before?" Both boys nodded at the same time. "You saw Lestrange take a branch and strike 13 stones quickly and accurately, and Potter swoop down 15 meters to catch the glass ball," McGonagall continued. "Neither of them so much as grazed themselves. Even the Weasleys couldn't manage either of those feats." Wood's face lit up. He put his arms around both boys' shoulders. "Do you two know anything about Quidditch?" Harry shook his head. Robin indicated he'd read the books about it. Wood stepped back and circled, taking them in. "Potter's small, with a broad, flat chest and a light frame, perfect for a Seeker. Lestrange is tall, muscular, nicely built. I'm wondering about his explosive power." "Very strong. His explosive power is very strong," McGonagall affirmed. "Then a beater is just right for him." Wood's grin was almost painful with excitement. "Professor, I think it's time the team gets 2 new brooms. A Cleansweep 7 or the Nimbus 2000 would be superb, but the rules say first years can't." "Headmaster Dumbledore is not a stickler for rules," McGonagall said crisply. "I'll speak to him. Lestrange, Potter, I expect to hear from Wood and the rest of the team that you are training diligently. If you don't, I'll change my mind and you will be punished for the mistakes you have just made." So much for refusing. After McGonagall left, Harry peppered Wood with questions, but Wood had to dash back to his own lessons. He promised to explain everything at training next week and hurried off. That evening, at the Gryffindor table in the Great Hall, Ron nearly choked on his beef when Harry told him he and Robin were joining the team. "Beater and Seeker. But first years aren't allowed," Ron blurted. "You two've been specially admitted? You must be the youngest players Hogwarts has ever had." "It's happened before, about a century ago," Harry said. "We start training next week. Captain Wood wants to keep it secret for now, so Ron, don't blab it." "I won't say a word," Ron vowed. His lips might have been sealed, but secrets hardly stayed hidden at Hogwarts. Fred and George came barreling across the table. One grabbed Harry, the other Robin. "Well done, Harry," George whispered. "The captain told us everything." "Robin, honestly," Fred said with a mock sigh, "less than 2 weeks in and you're trying to steal my job." Robin scowled inwardly. Did he want to be a beater? It was dirty and exhausting work, injury-prone, and worst of all, beaters helped the team but didn't score points. He caught the smugness in Fred's tone but kept his face neutral. "Why does joining the team make you so glum?" Harry asked. "Shouldn't you be thrilled?" Hermione, chin high, couldn't resist explaining. "The Seeker's whole job is the golden snitch. Catch it and you get 150 points. That usually wins the game. The snitch is slippery and hard to catch, though, and if you don't get it, it's hardly your fault." Beaters are different. Their job is to control the bludgers, violent, spiteful balls that fly about trying to smash you off your broom. 1 minute you're knocking one away, and the next another could hit you in the head, break your skull, knock you off your broom, or worse. Isn't that right, Lestrange? If Hermione had to make things personal to speak, Robin thought, she could at least be less dramatic. "Oh my goodness, that's terrible. Robin, why didn't you say so sooner? We should go to Professor McGonagall and make her get Headmaster Dumbledore to change his mind." "Sit down, Harry," Fred said, and George used both arms to pin him to the bench. "Relax. As far as we know, a bludger has never turned anyone into an idiot or paralyzed them." Fred was amused. The worst on the records was a beater whose jaw was broken. Madame Pomfrey patched them up and they were back training the next day. Harry's panic eased a good deal on hearing that. Hermione huffed and sat down, offended at being contradicted. Fred and George excused themselves, off to investigate the passage behind the sycophantic Gregory Goyle statue, they said, and left the table. Robin, Harry, and Ron finished their dinner and were heading back to the common room when Malfoy and his cronies, Crabbe and Goyle, stepped into their path. "Lestrange, Potter, what time are you boys going home to your filthy muggle families tonight?" Malfoy sneered. "Use your brain, Malfoy," Harry snapped. "You started this, not us. Why would Lestrange and I be in trouble?" Robin, never one to miss an opening, added, "Malfoy, your courage only goes as far as your 2 lackeys let it. Without them, you'd never dare to pick a fight. Even with a professor at the high table, Quirinus Quirrell, for example, you lot just stand there like sourpusses, cracking your carrot-like knuckles." Malfoy bristled, but Crabbe and Goyle only shifted their weight and looked for a teacher. The corridor smelled of roast beef and hot butter, and the 3 Gryffindors walked on, talking quietly about what the next week, training, secrecy, and the extraordinary possibility of Hogwarts' youngest Quidditch players might bring. 35. Duel Challenge. Malfoy's face flushed with anger. A cold glint flashed in his gray eyes. "Me, Goyle, and Crabbe will duel you, Harry, and Ron at any time. If you 3 aren't cowards, meet us for a wizard's duel tonight at midnight in the trophy room on the 4th floor. No brute force, only wands. Do you accept?" "Fine, I hope you won't be crying for mercy then," Ron shot back. "You'll be the one bawling for your mummy, you pauper." Malfoy yanked down his lower eyelid with a finger, twisted his mouth into a sneer, and led his 2 cronies away. "Ron, why are you always so quick to mouth off? I hadn't even finished the challenge," Harry said, frowning. "Harry, from what I know of you and Robin, you'll think about it, then accept Malfoy's challenge. We've only been at school 2 weeks. The magic we've learned is pitiful. In a duel, at best the other side will be shooting off fireworks," Robin said. "What if I cast a spell and my wand doesn't respond?" Harry asked. "What do I do then?" Robin chuckled. "Then chuck your wand, ball your fists, and sock your opponent right on the nose." "But he said no brute force," Harry protested. "Who cares?" Ron interjected. "In a duel, winning's the only thing that matters." "Exactly," Ron echoed. Just then Hermione, clutching a thick book, squeezed between them. Her brown eyes flicked from face to face. "Excuse me for butting in, but if you keep turning like that, my face is going to break out in a rash." Hermione's hair was unruly. Every time she turned it brushed against Robin's face like a broom. "Sorry," he muttered. Hermione's ears went pink. She sidestepped a little, smoothed her breathing, lifted her chin, lowered her lids, and glared at the 3 of them. Her voice took on the tone of someone polished by prefect duties. "Wandering around the castle at night instead of sleeping is a serious breach of school rules. If you three get caught, Gryffindor will be even further behind in the House Cup. You can't be so selfish. If points are docked, we'll just earn them back. With all due respect, this has nothing to do with you, not even a nut, Ron said, meaning, don't be a busybody. Fine, goodbye, Harry added, and the three started to walk off. Hermione stamped her foot in anger. She couldn't let them go. She decided to find a way to stop the three troublemakers. Tonight, 11:30, Gryffindor Tower. Creak. Three figures slipped through the boys' dormitory door into the dim common room. The only light came from the dying embers in the fireplace. Moving by that faint glow, the three threaded between armchairs and reached the portrait hole. Robin reached out to push the fat lady's portrait aside, and a sharp, indignant voice came from nearby. Robin, I can't believe you three are actually going to break the rules. Poof. A lamp flared to life. In the light, Hermione stood in pink pajamas, frowning and glaring. You're not on the list. Go back to bed. Heh, perfect. Not on the list makes you ideal to help us cover things up. I almost told Percy. He's a prefect. He has the duty to stop you, Robin taunted. But you didn't tell him, did you? Hermione snapped. I wanted to give you a chance. If you go back to the boys' dorm now, I'll pretend this never happened. Mind your own business, will you? Come on, ignore her. Ron shoved aside the fat lady's portrait and climbed into the hole. Harry followed, Robin bringing up the rear. Hermione was stubborn. She squeezed through after them, clucking and fuming like a mother goose whose goslings had gone astray. Don't you have any sense of collective responsibility? You only argue and duel to satisfy yourselves. I won't have those annoying Slytherins win the House Cup, and I won't have all the points we've worked so hard to earn in Transfiguration wiped away because of you. As Hermione lectured, Ron and Harry had already slipped through the hole. When Robin's feet touched the landing on the other side, he spread his arms and blocked the entrance. Miss Granger, Ron and Harry and I are already in the 8th floor corridor. Breaking the rules would already be a certainty. If you go back now, you won't be counted as breaking them. No, I'm coming too, and then I'll herd each of you back. If I'm quick, no one will be able to dock points from Gryffindor. Robin sighed and took a step aside to let her out. Hermione grabbed his sleeve, trying to pull him back in. Get in, hurry, they both listen to you. If you go in, the rest will be easy. She pulled with all her strength, but Robin's feet seemed rooted to the floor. He looked at Hermione's determined, angry face, smiled, and poked her cheek with a finger. Her cheek was springy and smooth. Before she could glare, he raised an eyebrow and nodded toward the portrait hole. The fat lady? Where has she gone? Hermione said, alarmed, staring at the empty frame. While you were busy tugging my sleeve, she went off visiting, Robin said, putting on an exaggerated look of exasperation. The fat lady wiggled away. The fat lady is fat as a water tank. Where would she hide a waist? Ron quipped. Not a water tank. She's fat, but she has a neck, Harry said solemnly. Is this really the time to discuss the fat lady's figure? Hermione wailed. Tears pricked her eyes. How do I get back in? Miss Granger, you can wait here for the fat lady to return. When she does and you say the password, you'll be allowed back to the girls' dormitory. Ron, Harry, let's go. They had barely reached the end of the corridor before Hermione began to jog after them. I'm coming with you. This is between us and Malfoy. Why do you insist on getting involved? Aren't you afraid of Filch catching you and us losing more house points? Ron snapped. Humph. I want to watch to make sure you don't make things worse. If Filch finds all four of us, I'll tell him the truth. I was trying to stop you, Hermione said. Robin grinned. Miss Granger, you have a lively imagination. Filch isn't interested in why you're out at night. He resents every student equally. He only has one thought, to hang students upside down from the ceiling. Hermione went a shade paler. Robin knew he had struck the right note. Yes, Fred and George say the same thing about Filch, Ron agreed. You lot are impossible. Fine, I'm coming with you. All right, if you insist. Ron, Harry, let's go. 36. Three-headed dog Fluffy. The four of them crept down the stairs, keeping close to the banister. Every time they turned a corner, Robin sent Harry ahead to scout. Only after Harry signaled that Filch and Mrs. Norris weren't around did he lead the others on. After about 5 or 6 minutes, they reached the 4th floor. Hugging the stone wall, they walked a little farther and arrived at the agreed-upon dueling spot. The trophy room was open around the clock. Under the hazy moonlight, the trophies, shields, suits of armor, medals, and metal statues in the crystal cases were bathed in a cold, silvery glow. Except for Robin, the other three kept their wands out, afraid Malfoy would leap out from a shadow and ambush them. Time crept by. It was already 20 minutes past midnight, and Malfoy and his lot had still not shown. "Cowards," Ron muttered, backing against the wall. "They dared to send a challenge, and then don't even turn up. I should have known they were all talk." Suddenly there was tapping and rustling in the corridor. Harry pulled the three of them behind a suit of armor. "Mrs. Norris is around. Filch said a gang would be causing trouble in the trophy room tonight. I'll catch them all and beg the headmaster to expel them." Meow! Meow! It was Filch and his cat. The rustling sounded like he was jingling keys and searching the display room next door. Robin raised an eyebrow and signaled for the others to follow him out of the trophy room. When they nodded, he tightened his pajamas and tiptoed out, the others close behind. They sprinted down a corridor lined with armor. Suddenly, Ron tripped over a displaced suit. In a panic, he grabbed Harry's back, and the two of them went down. The armor toppled with a clang. Tap! Rustle! Filch, keys clinking, was heading toward the trophy room door. The commotion had clearly alerted him. "Run!" Robin barked, hauling Harry and Ron to their feet and dragging them to the right. The four of them dashed around pillars and through labyrinthine corridors until, finally breathless, they stopped beside the Charms classroom, a good distance from the trophy room. "I think we've shaken Filch," Ron panted, bracing himself against the wall. "I told you not to wander." Hermione tugged at her collar to let the cold air in. Robin noticed how pale she looked. "We need to plan a route so we don't bump into anyone else," Harry said. "It has to be the shortest path possible. Malfoy set this up. Someone tipped Filch off. How could you believe that idiot?" "Don't be a Monday morning quarterback. Let's get out of here," Ron said. They'd only taken 10 steps when a doorknob rattled nearby. Peeves, cheeks puffed and grin wide, shot out of a classroom and floated in front of them, cackling in his high, grating voice. "Peeves, shut up, or I'll fetch the bloody Baron," Robin hissed. Peeves paused, spun in the air looking for the Baron, and finding none resumed his screeching. "Little brats, first year's out and about at this hour. Naughty, naughty. If Filch catches you, you'll be spanked. Spanking's humiliating and exciting. Brilliant, just brilliant." Robin shot him a look that said he found Peeves more perverted than Filch. "No, they won't. Just keep quiet and go play somewhere else," Hermione pleaded. Mischief lit Peeves's round eyes. "You must accept punishment for wrongdoings. Rules are rules. Filch, bald old stinky man, hurry up. There are students not sleeping, right next to Charms." "Peeves, you're impossible," Harry snapped. "Nya nya." Peeves stuck out his tongue and shouted even louder. "Tap! Rustle!" Filch was on his way. "Don't mind him. Find a place to hide," Robin urged, dodging a spray of ectoplasm as they ran for the end of the corridor. They skidded to a door, but it was locked. The footsteps and the sound of keys grew closer. One more corner and Filch would see them. "We're done for," Ron groaned. "No duel, and Gryffindor will lose points. Tragic." "That's not necessarily true." Robin drew his wand, traced a small circle on the lock, then a line down from the circle's edge. "Alohomora," he whispered. Click. The lock released. He pushed the door open and pulled the others inside. Once the door was closed, they pressed their ears to it to listen. "Peeves, you saw them hide, didn't you? Tell me where," Filch demanded, jingling keys. "You have to say please," Peeves replied, circling and singing. "Peeves, I'm not in the mood. Tell me where the brats went." Peeves grinned, humming a taunting tune. "Filch, if you don't say please, I'll say I don't know anything." Filch's eyes bulged with veins pulsing. "All right, Peeves, please tell me where they are." "Don't know anything, ha!" Peeves cackled and flew off, taunting Filch. "Bald old stinky man, have you never bathed? Filch doesn't bathe, so unhygienic." Filch grumbled and stalked away to search elsewhere. "Lucky, Filch must think this door was locked," Ron breathed. Thank goodness Peeves didn't squeal. "You three should think about your choices," Hermione scolded. "Ron, you can't just stir things up." "Harry, I expected more from you. Responsible and studious, remember? And you, Robin, you should. Hey, where'd he go?" Robin had his back to the others, staring, transfixed at Fluffy. the legendary three-headed dog. Earlier, when they'd escaped the trophy room, he'd taken them down this corridor on purpose to see the rumored beast. Fluffy's massive body filled the room from floor to ceiling. Each of his three enormous heads, each nearly the size of two water tanks, had huge rolling eyes that radiated ferocity. His three snouts twitched constantly, and stringy, translucent drool hung from his yellowed, foul-smelling fangs. Robin found himself wondering what it would be like to ride Fluffy's back, to soar across valleys on that booming, powerful body. It would be no less thrilling than flying on a broomstick. 37. The imaginary team of villains. Ah, a monster! Hermione shrieked. Quiet, don't attract Filch, Robin hissed. Robin, come back, he'll bite you to death. Harry said, panic in his voice. This creature was no cowardly Fang. A three-headed dog was terrifying by nature. Didn't Snape once have his calf badly bitten when he tried to stop those who were stealing the Philosopher's Stone? This dog didn't seem to care about friends or enemies. Robin! Harry swallowed hard, forced himself forward, and grabbed Robin by the arm, pulling him back toward the doorway. The three heads bared teeth, hissing and growling at them. Hermione shoved the portrait door open. Quick in here! Robin stayed at the rear, waving a brief goodbye to the snarling beast before he bundled into the common room and slammed the portrait shut. 8th floor, corridor, the fat lady demanded, peering at them. Where have you four been? She took in their rumpled pajamas, sweaty brows, and flushed faces with a look of partaged worry and disapproval. Please, just let us in, Harry panted. Well, I never imagined you'd have secrets at your age. The portrait sniffed, swinging aside to reveal the warmth of the common room. They all collapsed into armchairs, breathing hard. Harry, still excited, asked, Do you remember Dumbledore's 4 warnings at the start of term feast? Even winded, Hermione couldn't resist showing off. Of course I remember. 1. Students must not go into the Forbidden Forest. 2. No magic in the corridors between classes. 3. Quidditch tryouts in the second week. And 4. If you don't want to meet with an accident or die a horrible death, don't go into the corridor on the right side of the 4th floor. Robin finished. So the danger on that corridor is that vicious dog, Ron said, stunned. Not just that, Hermione snapped. Ron, if you're not going to look, give your eyes to someone who needs them. Didn't you notice something under the dog's paws? Under what? When the dog was staring down at him, Ron's only thought was escape. He hadn't seen anything else. It's standing on a living wooden board, Robin said. It's guarding something under there. A cloth bundle, Hermione supplied. That's it. That three-headed beast is a guard, like the dragon at Gringotts. Remember, on July 31st, Hagrid, on Dumbledore's orders, took a cloth bundle out of Vault 713. Who else could have the authority to put a monstrous three-headed dog in the castle? Only the headmaster. Harry sprang to his feet, voice bright with discovery. Hermione stood too, but her face hardened into anger. Enough, she snapped. You nearly got us killed, and instead of learning anything, you act proud of yourselves. Next time I won't bother helping. Whether you get expelled or torn apart by a three-headed dog is your business. I'm going back to bed. With that, she flicked her hair like an offended swan and stormed up to the girls' dormitory. She's got a temper, Ron muttered. Let's go too, Robin said, heading for the boys' dormitory. Snape's potions class tomorrow morning, and I don't want him glaring at me for being late. Harry and Ron trailed behind with leaden feet. The next morning in the Great Hall, the tables were alive with chatter. The Slytherin trio, Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle, were already at the house table, loudly indulging in fantasies about what would happen if Harry were expelled. They're finished, Malfoy crowed. I can already see him going back to wherever he came from, his mother standing with her hands on her hips, furious. We'll put him on the front page of the Prophet. My father will pay for it. Make Potter even more famous for all the wrong reasons. And what about that annoying orphan? Crabbe added. No one will want to take him in. Perhaps when I go home at Christmas, Malfoy went on, eyes gleaming as he imagined it, I'll see him among the homeless, lining up for stale bread. Crunch, he'll bite down and break his front teeth. Hilarious. Goyle laughed, and Crabbe handed him a hard candy before joining in. Robin had been trailing behind the trio, watching them. He rolled his eyes at their scheming. Then he noticed a patch of oil glinting on the floor ahead, and an idea popped into his head. He darted across the hall and stood beside Goyle. "We weren't expelled, you idiots," he called out. "Your little plan was pathetic. Only someone foolish wouldn't see through it." Malfoy opened his mouth to retort, but Crabbe's feet hit the oil first. In an instant, Malfoy slipped, pulled down by Crabbe, and hit the floor in a tangle of robes. Orange-red oil splattered across his expensive uniform and his powdered face. "Oh, Malfoy, no need to worship the Earth Goddess just because we get to stay," Robin mocked. "Shut up," Malfoy spat, scrambling to his feet on the slick tile. Crabbe was holding on to him, and he flailed like a trapped bird. Making matters worse, someone nearby began to laugh, and Malfoy felt his humiliation and anger burn. "Crabbe, this is your fault," he growled. "You'll pay for this." "It wasn't me. Goyle pulled me." Crabbe defended himself. Goyle, meanwhile, began to howl theatrically. "Oh no, my tooth! Where's my tooth? Boo-hoo!" A small pink hard candy had slipped from between Goyle's teeth and clattered to the floor, landing in an oil slick. He looked at it and sobbed even louder. Robin, feigning compassion, nudged his toe and sent two of Goyle's large front teeth, actually candied novelties he'd been keeping, sliding toward the boy. "Here then," he said mockingly, "your teeth." "Boo, my tooth, boo," Goyle bawled. "Really, I already helped you get your teeth back. Why are you still crying?" Robin said, pretending to be baffled. Filch, who had been watching with fury, stamped over with his mop. "You lot! Get up! Don't make me call Madame Pomfrey! Look at this mess!" Faced with the caretaker's wrath and the prospect of being mopped into oblivion, the Slytherins scrambled to their feet and slunk away, shooting angry glances at Robin as they went. Robin raised an eyebrow, unrepentant. As he passed, he heard Filch muttering about a clumsy Neville and about cleaning up Gryffindor's little masterpiece, which, if anything, only widened Robin's grin. Before he could reach the Gryffindor table, Hermione appeared at his side, furious. "Robin, I saw everything. You shoved Goyle. You made him lose his teeth. You, 38, Quirrell's temptation. What's wrong with me, Miss Granger? If a group of people slandered your muggle parents, mocked you for not being pure blood, and used filthy names to insult your character, could you really stand there and not beat them to a pulp?" Robin smiled, teasing. "If anyone says that to you again, they're a dog. Sometimes saying something harsh just gets you slapped in the face." Robin knew that, which was why he wasn't in any hurry to make things up with Hermione. Of course, it didn't take long before she made the first move. It was Wednesday morning of the 3rd week. The Great Hall was full for breakfast when a flock of 12 smooth-feathered owls swooped in. They split into 2 groups. 6 long-eared owls each carried a long, narrow parcel. Forks and knives were set down mid-bite as everyone craned their necks, wondering what could need such an elaborate escort. Thud, thud, 2 parcels landed, one in front of Robin's table, one in front of Harry's, sending dishes clattering. The boys exchanged a look. Broomsticks, no doubt. Someone had mentioned Professor McGonagall might have arranged 2 extra players. "Are they broomsticks?" someone muttered. Hermione had barely touched her breakfast since the owls arrived. Curiosity finally won out, and she leaned over, stern-faced. Robin raised an eyebrow in a really, "are you a puppy?" look, which only made Hermione hotter. She slammed down into the bench beside him, glaring at the parcel. A small, wobbly owl landed awkwardly and flung a letter squarely at Hermione's face. The poor thing quivered and fluttered off, looking ashamed. "Give it here." Robin reached for the note, but Hermione ripped it open first and read aloud, voice low. "To avoid unnecessary trouble, please do not open the packages in the Great Hall. Inside are the latest Nimbus 2000 broomsticks. Tonight at 7 p.m. at the Quidditch pitch, Captain Oliver Wood will give you both your first training session. Professor Minerva McGonagall." "Nimbus 2000s, Hermione breathed. "Robin, you mustn't waste Professor McGonagall's trouble." "Miss Granger," Robin said, feigning charm, "would you like to come watch me play tonight at 7? Teasing Hermione once was fun, twice was flirting, but 3 times was asking for trouble. Whoever wanted to think that could, but Robin most certainly didn't. What's so great about watching a beginner flail about? I could read 3 whole books in that time. Humph. Reading 3 books in 2 hours. Only someone like you, Robin." Harry snorted and held up 8 fingers while pointing upstairs. Robin nodded, picked up the parcel, and started for the stairs. At the foot of the stairwell, they ran straight into Malfoy, with Crabbe and Goyle behind him, blocking the steps like two small mountains. Robin noticed Goyle's new front teeth with a private, appreciative thought for Madame Pomfrey's skill. Fatty had not only regrown his teeth, they were whiter than before. Malfoy narrowed his eyes and, with a sneer, reached for Harry's parcel. Harry had never had anything so expensive given to him before. He clutched it to his chest. The two of them locked in a tug-of-war. Robin, quick as ever, flicked a Bertie Bott's every flavor bean. It struck Malfoy's calf, and he stumbled forward. Harry, not wanting to become a human cushion, sidestepped, and Malfoy went sprawling onto the marble with a heavy thud. "Potter, you," Malfoy began, furious. Goyle hauled Malfoy up. Before things could escalate, Professor Quirrell appeared, wrapped in his purple turban and smelling faintly of garlic. "Excuse me, are you two fighting?" he asked in his high, nervous voice. "Professor, no one pushed him. He just tripped," Harry protested. Malfoy, still reddening, went straight for the rules. "The school rules say first years aren't allowed to bring broomsticks to school. Quirrell, punish them and expel them at once." Quirrell looked as if the very thought made him tremble. I can't do that," he stammered. Actually, Professor McGonagall and Headmaster Dumbledore explained the special circumstances about selecting players this year. "Lestrange, what model broom did you get?" "Nimbus 2000, Professor," Robin answered calmly, though his mind raced. Something about Quirrell's attention felt off. Quirrell shouldn't be interested in him. His gaze should be fixed on Harry, the chosen one. Why was Quirrell staring at him like that? Malfoy scoffed. "There's no precedent for first years being chosen as players. You must have missed it in the school calendar." Quirrell picked at his sleeve, looking as if he had ants under his skin. "Lestrange, there's something else I want to ask you." "Ask," Robin said, unconcerned. Quirrell swallowed and formed the words with visible effort. "Have you ever asked Miss Grey about the Ravenclaw diadem?" He drew a long breath, as if a burden had been lifted by asking. Robin shrugged. "Yes, I asked her last week. Since she's been the Ravenclaw ghost, she's probably been asked 5,000, no, 10,000 times about the Diadem of Wisdom." Quirrell's shoulders sagged with relief. But then, voice dropping until it was almost a whisper, he said, "But as far as I know, you are the only one who made a wager with her. You said that if you could find the diadem, it would belong to you. Robin Lestrange, do you actually know where it's hidden?" Robin blinked, saying so much in one breath. No point pretending a stammer now. "Professor, if I knew where the Diadem of Wisdom was, I'd have handed it to Headmaster Dumbledore in exchange for house points ages ago. After all, Professor Snape already deducts an average of 5 points from me every potions class." Snape was a point-deducting fanatic, and his reasons were stranger than the last. Brewing potions too quickly and being blamed for lack of collective consciousness, being too tall and blocking people's view, answering the question perfectly and being accused of showing off. Robin muttered, "If you've got so much free time, Professor Snape, you might as well take a daffodil and mugwort infusion, trot off to Godric's Hollow, and confess to Lily Evans instead of taking it out on the students here." "Robin Lestrange, do you honestly not know, or are you pretending not to know?" Quirrell stepped forward so suddenly that the sharp smell of garlic made Harry flinch back. "Professor, I'm doing it for house points," Robin replied coolly. "What about you? Why do you want to find the diadem?" Quirrell faltered. For a moment he had no clever answer at all. I'm doing it for research." "Yes, research. There's a rumor the diadem makes the wearer smarter." Robin cocked an eyebrow. "So you think you're not very smart, then?" Earlier that day, Robin had kept a low profile in defense against the dark arts, didn't make waves, didn't pick fights. That didn't mean he was afraid of trouble. If someone looked for a fight, refusing to draw a weapon would mark him a coward. He'd only be picked on later. He wasn't about to let that happen. Quirrell stood there, stammering, unable to come up with a proper retort. It was Percy's officious little reminder. "Please don't block the staircase," that broke the tension and gave Quirrell an excuse to retreat. Robin and Harry returned to the dormitories to stow away the parcels, then set off for their next class with their textbooks under their arms. 7 o'clock. The Quidditch pitch. In some ways, the pitch reminded Robin of an old university stadium from his previous life, wide, substantial, tiered stands that could seat hundreds, broad steps so even the tallest and shortest could see the action clearly. At each end stood 3 straight golden poles, about 15 meters tall, with iron hoops welded to their tops. Harry could barely contain himself. The moment they arrived, he mounted his new broom and weaved through the 3 hoops, whooping as he went. Robin, though, stood on the ground and turned the Nimbus 2000 over in his hands with slow appreciation. It was mahogany, sleek and warm to the touch, the tail twigs neatly bound, the words Nimbus 2000 brushed in gold dust along the top. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" Oliver Wood asked, lugging a wide, flat wooden box. "It's lovely," Robin said. "How it flies, I won't know until I ride it." Wood smiled, pleased. Calm, collected, not easily rattled, you're naturally suited to be a beater. Most people's first thought with a new broom is what Potter's thinking. They never want to leave it. He planted the wooden box on the grass and opened it. Inside were 4 balls of different sizes. Wood picked up a red one about the size of a soccer ball. In Quidditch, 2 teams face off. Each team has a keeper, 3 chasers, 2 beaters, and 1 seeker. This red ball is the quaffle. Chasers pass it. If it goes through an opponent's hoop, your team scores 10 points. You follow? Harry parroted the information as if he were a recording, eyes bright. Robin nodded once, steady. Good. The keeper guards the hoops. The beaters carry bats and try to keep the bludgers away from their teammates. Wood pointed to 2 black balls, slightly smaller than the quaffle, fastened with restraining straps. They buzzed faintly. "These are bludgers." "Want to try?" Wood asked Robin. "Sure." Robin took a bat with an easy, practiced motion and stepped back a little. Wood unfastened one strap. The black ball shot into the air like a cannon. It curved toward Robin at speed heel. Hitting the bludger was not just about strength. Angle and timing mattered. Robin gripped the bat and, when the bludger was about 6 meters away, swung upward from below. The bat connected with a crack, and the bludger responds by shooting up 5 or 6 meters, whistling across the air and curving in a wild arc above their heads. It barely missed hair, not scalp, and hovered a heartbeat before hunting for a new target. Robin half smiled inwardly. He suspected the blasted thing was taunting him. Wood opened the other strap, drawing the second bludger out. It whooshed toward him. He leapt, caught it, and flopped forward onto the grass, pinning the buzzing ball under his weight. For a moment, he seemed to have it under control, until it didn't. The bludger began to spin faster and faster, digging a rut in the turf. With a sudden burst, it wriggled free and shot back into the air, careening toward the other players who were sitting in a circle discussing tactics. "Alicia, look out!" Angelina shouted, hauling Alicia away. Katie Bell darted aside with a muttered curse. "Stupid bludger, I'll split you in 2 and boil the bits down." She tried to move again, but the bludger braked in midair, then began to convulse and smoke. It dove unerringly toward Katie's forehead. Her body froze. Angelina had pulled Alicia 50 meters away. It was too late to drag Katie clear. By the time the bludger was 5 meters away, Katie could already smell the scorched air. She closed her eyes and imagined a black crater where her forehead should be, a long stay in the hospital wing, and letting the team down without her. A resounding thwack cut off her worst thoughts. The heat and the smell disappeared. Katie opened her eyes and saw a handsome young man, smiling, swinging a bat. The bludger had been knocked aside, the force and angle sending it skittering away harmlessly. Her heart pounded as adrenaline and relief rose together. Thump! Thump! Katie clutched her throat, trying to calm her racing heart. Her cheeks warmed with the urge to thank the boy, but he was already after the accursed bludger, one hand on his broom. Up in the air, Robin suddenly accelerated, caught up with the bludger, and smacked its top with his bat. Before the black ball could recover from the first blow, he hit it again. It spun dizzily and began to fall. Robin dove after it, closed the distance, and when the bludger was only 2 meters off the ground, he swung from bottom to top, striking its underside. Everyone on the pitch watched a young boy steering his broom with one hand while gripping his bat in the other. He flew incredibly fast, faster than the bludger, forcing it to twist and change direction with every strike. 10 minutes later, with a thunderous thud, the bludger slammed into the lawn and dug a large pit. Mud flew everywhere, splattering Fred and George's faces and robes. "Robin, Was that on purpose? Fred asked, wiping mud from his face. Oh, do you even need to ask? He's clearly jealous of our looks, ha! George laughed. He scooped a handful of mud from the pit and hurled it at Fred, who laughed if it hit and grabbed more if it missed. The two of them traded handfuls until they both suddenly stopped. Exchanging a conspiratorial glance, each grabbed two enormous handfuls and flung them over their shoulders. Robin steered his broom and spun away, ducking behind Wood. Then someone's furious roar echoed across the field, making the leaves tremble. Fred, George, 500 aerial sharp turns. You're not coming back to the castle until you're done. Wood pulled mud from his mouth and nose, gritting his teeth as he scolded them. Fred and George mounted their brooms, circled him 3 or 4 times, and then cheerfully took off into the sky, clearly long used to that sort of punishment. Wood sighed, scooped the black ball from the pit, and said, "Those Weasleys are a nightmare to manage, but I'll admit they're brilliant together in the air. One look between them, and they know what the other means. Robin, that last run was spectacular. I've never seen anyone chase a bludger and hit it so hard it couldn't even dodge. But..." Robin followed Wood's gaze upward to see the Weasley twins playing a game of hit me and I'll do a 720-degree flip. "Wood, I understand, but I have a question," Robin said. "Are reserve players put through the same training as the regulars?" Yes, exactly the same." Robin's hopes of taking it easy were mercilessly dashed. Wood wiped the mud off the bludger, set it in a wooden box, and fastened the restraining straps. This time, the black ball didn't buzz angrily. It lay in the box like a lifeless muggle toy. Robin scanned the stands and noticed a small purple dot moving along one of the aisles. He flew back down to the ground and frowned. So the bludger going wild hadn't been Dobby. It had been Quirinus Quirrell causing mischief. Was he after Harry or someone else? "Robin, hurry over. Wood's about to talk about the third ball," Harry called, breaking into his thoughts. Robin stowed his broom and crouched by the wooden box as Wood took out a small golden walnut-sized ball with a pair of silver wings. "This is the golden snitch," Wood explained. "It can fly like lightning when it wants to, and sometimes it'll hover or hide in places that are hard to see. The Seeker's only job is to catch the snitch. Catching it earns your team 150 points. That's usually enough to decide the match. And one more thing," Wood added. "A Quidditch match ends when the snitch is caught. It's not the score or how long you've been playing that decides it." "What if neither team can catch it?" Harry asked. "Then the match goes on until someone does. I remember the longest match on record lasted 3 months, with first team and reserves taking turns. Otherwise..." "Otherwise what?" Harry prodded. "Otherwise they might die of exhaustion," Robin interrupted. "After all that fighting in the air day and night, exhaustion could be fatal," he pointed out. Wood hurried to calm things down. "Not literally, Robin. Let's not get carried away. Right, let's get started." He produced a bag of golf balls and the 3 boys took to the air. Wood would toss a ball. Robin's job was to hit it, Harry's to catch it. The balls were enchanted. Once hit or caught and released, they flew right back into the bag so Wood could keep throwing. Robin connected with every single one. Harry caught every catch. Wood beamed, claiming they'd crush Slytherin this year. An hour later, training wound down. Wood, like an overprotective mum, lectured them on muscle relaxation and stretches before letting them go. As Robin and Harry walked toward the edge of the pitch, they saw Ron and Hermione in the middle of an argument. Hermione with a red nose and an angry face, Ron pouting. "What's wrong with you?" Harry frowned at Ron, clearly thinking Ron had asked for trouble. "Robin, Harry, you two judge this," Ron demanded. "All I said was, if you want to watch, go to the stands," and she exploded, lecturing me until my ears burned. "The midnight adventure's over. Why's she still holding on to it? Humph, her heart's smaller than a sesame seed." "Humph, wasn't everything I said true?" Hermione snapped, glaring at Ron. "You two broke rules and showed no remorse. Sooner or later, Malfoy will have something to blackmail you with. And anyway, I was reciting spells. I wasn't watching where I was going. Do you think I'm dying to see greenhorns play Quidditch?" She stormed off. "She was staring at you the whole time, Robin. Well, at your broomstick anyway," Ron muttered. "Maybe she was admiring the latest model," Harry said dryly. "Enough about her. I'm missing my big, soft bed." "Me too," Robin replied, rubbing his sore shoulders. What are we waiting for? Let's head back to the castle. Under the night sky, the three boys walked across the neatly trimmed lawn toward the castle.